Good morning. It's the NBA front office show. It's me, Keith Smith, joined by Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter. Yes, it is Keith and that Pistons guy, as someone said in the chat. But Bryce is, I think of you more as that draft guy. Now that's what I go to Bryce for. Whenever I'm like, hey, somebody tipped me off on this kid, I shoot him a text, and then I'm like, worth looking at, not worth looking at, and it's pretty rare when I get back. I don't know who that is. It's almost always a thing. I will say we're gonna get to a second round pick. I knew almost nothing about other than I literally was like, what a crazy stat line, like, and that was it. But good morning, Bryce.
What's up? Yeah, I mean, I guess I would prefer that lawn guy if we're gonna go with something. I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I was live with Sam in that second round because there was a couple overseas that are probably going to be drafting stash, and then the college player that I'm sure we'll talk about at a certain point that kind of came out of nowhere for everybody. So there was a few names. I still feel pretty good about it because a lot of the undrafted free agents that we may talk about today, I haven't kept up where they landed. I'm sure you have some of that, or we'll get into it as we go throughout. Because as you know, we talked about and laughed about, I've been harvesting, like it is wheat harvest where I live right now. That is why we are so early today, because any later than this, and my dad would be very frustrated with me for not being to the field on time.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling Bryce so Bryce does Game Theory with Sam Vecini, which is some of the absolute best draft coverage you could get out there. The two guys just they kill it. And you guys have good play off each other and everything like that. So when you guys started the second round, Bryce was like, Sam was talking about some news that had come out, and Bryce was like, "Oh, I was on the combine," and somebody said, "Man, I was watching Bryce and Sam, and like Bryce was like crunching combine tape like before the second round." And I was like, "No, he was like on a combine, like," and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "An actual like harvester machine like out there." So yeah, it's when Bryce says that we had a comment here. From D.A. Baracus, who's always on our show, says, "I'll save you some time. Cooper Flag is really good." Next, Bryce needs to get back to his tractor. It's not really wrong.
A lot of truth in that statement right there.
But guys, so if you're new to this, we are going to go through all 30 teams. We're going to talk all 59 picks. We'll talk the trades a little bit more of the first round trades. The second round trades are just a lot of, typical second round movement in that, but we'll get into a couple of those as well. Maybe some undrafted guys, some of the guys who have linked up with teams on two ways and camp deals if we get into them. But Bryce, I think what we'll do is we'll just go kind of pick order. But when we come to a team, we'll talk about their entire draft night. Does that work for you?
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right. So this one is easy, as D.A. Baracus said. Cooper Flag to the Mavs, no surprise. So here's what I'm going to ask, because we all knew this. Everybody's seen the breakdowns. Do you see Cooper Flag as multiple time all-star, all-NBA guy eventually in the NBA?
Yes. I mean, I had him as my clear number one prospect. And I will be honest, Keith, I didn't start out the cycle with that. I actually thought Ace Bailey, going back 9 months, I thought Ace Bailey was going to give Cooper Flag a run for his money in regards to that. I think sometimes people forget this was supposed to be a super high tier 5-player draft 9 months ago. Ace and Cooper and VJ and Dylan Harper and actually Nolan Traore. All guys we'll still talk about, but it didn't exactly play out exactly that way. And I thought Ace was we'll talk about Ace later. What Cooper Flag came in and did this year was knock down shots and scored the ball at a rate, especially with the jump shot, that was better than I anticipated. And that was the big question for me in regards to the ceiling you're talking about, Keith, because the defense is there. The intangibles are there. The size, the athleticism, all of that stuff is there. And when he was making shots at the rate he did at Duke, I was like, man, like this is a no-brainer. Like eventually it was just like, this is a tier in fun itself. And this is one of the better first round picks and prospects in the last decade or so.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been saying, as people have been asking, like, is he as good as advertised? And I said, it sounds weird to say he's a generational prospect because we just had one 2 years ago with
Yeah,
Wemby, and you can't have one every year. Like that's not like otherwise that whole term loses meaning.
correct.
In this case, it's fair. It just happened to happen, two out of 3 years, and I think he is in a spot where we are really like people are going to see this kid is going to be special. I think it's going to be a little bumpy for him to start offensively in the NBA because Jason Kidd's already talking about they don't have Kyrie Irving. Let's remember
Yeah,
that.
I'm nervous about what you're about to say, Keith.
He's going to play him at point guard or at least put the ball in his hands a lot. I will say this, though. When Jason Kidd had young Giannis, he put the ball in Giannis's hands a lot and said, yeah, there's going to be mistakes. It's going to look really bad, but long term, this will be really good. In like a decade later, Giannis still references like Jason Kidd let me grow and let me play through my mistakes as a very young player. So I'm not saying Cooper Flag's going to turn into Giannis. I wouldn't put that kind of pressure or bar on the kid, but I do think it's going to be a little bit bumpy early on. But I do think those on-ball reps will help him in the NBA early. They will get a guard in there. They're rumored to be after like D'Angelo Russell and a couple other veteran targets as their get by guy. Kyrie is supposed to be back sometime in January. So, but I think that earliness in the NBA as he adjusts to the speed, physicality of it. Offensively, it's there. Defensively, I have no worries. You could have plugged him in an NBA lineup 2 years ago when he should have been a high school junior and he was a high school senior because he reclassified. And I think he could have held his own defensively in the NBA then as a 16-year-old. So I'm really excited for him and for Dallas.
That's a really good point too, that he did reclass. Cooper Flag is very young.
Yeah.
Like, and so there's a lot of real growth with what he has still, and the maturity that he already has. He's been in the limelight. Obviously, maybe people don't know. He played at Montverde, where there's a lot of limelight on that program. We'll talk about
four guys drafted.
I was going to say, we'll talk about a lot of Montverde kids today. That team was just incredible. It was a lot of fun watching them at the high school level. I'm a little interested. So I agree with that. I just wonder where that team is like trying to win, like compete for titles. Is that going to be a lot? Maybe it's just a regular season, right? And until Kyrie gets back and in second units, I'm a little interested defensively, Keith, in terms of if they play him at the 3, are those his best like on-ball matchups? Because I think where Cooper Flag is the best and most impactful defensively, as is an off-the-ball roamer, passing lanes, low man rim protector, those type of things. And if they go Cooper Flag, AD, Derek Lively, he might have to take the best offensive matchup. I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't know that that's the best utilization. I've compared it to Scotty Barnes. I think Scotty Barnes in Toronto is best utilized as an off-ball defender, not your primary point of attack defender, if that makes sense.
No, I'm completely with you. I think you're right. I think he's going to have to take the best perimeter scoring threat that isn't a point guard. I don't think they're. I mean, he'll pick up point guards on switches, but yeah, if it's a wing, I think he's going to have to do that. But I'm with you. If I'm Jason Kidd too, I'm dreaming up some zone looks because they're clearly going to play very big.
Yeah,
because they're committed to AD at the 4, which means Flag has to play the 3, and then you're going to have to play a center with those guys with AD at the 4. So yeah, I mean, you could build a pretty nasty zone defense with those 3 as kind of your back line. You could even get a little funky and do almost more of a 3-2 look because AD and Lively, they can cover box to corner, no issue, right? They're so big and athletic. So I'm curious, but let's move forward because I don't want to spend too long on a guy we all know about. So the San Antonio Spurs, Dylan Harper at number 2. They went with Carter Bryant at number 14. They traded their second round pick, really kind of sold it to the Pacers. We'll get into the Pacers a little bit later down the line here, but Harper, they kind of had become for probably couple months now, the no-brainer number 2 in this draft. And then Carter Bryant, just for me, I want to spend a little bit more time on him. Felt like just feels like a Spur. Like just when he was on the board and I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to go to San Antonio. And it's just so perfect.
Real quick on the Mavericks, just undrafted free agents. I'm using the score. They have like a pretty
Okay.
good list here. Just real quick.
Yeah.
Ryan Nimhard is a point guard out
Yeah, he's going to
of
get a two-way.
Okay, two-way. So he's a point guard out of Gonzaga, obviously Andrew Nimhard's brother. He's a little smaller. It's not, but maybe a guy that can maybe run like third point guard minutes, run your G League team. Miles Kelly is a big-time wing shooter from Auburn, and then Musa Cisse is a big, like they need any more bigs. Probably not going to play into the equation, but just the names that like really pop out to me as we go through undrafted free agents, I'll try to mention real quick. Dylan Harper very much became the number 2 prospect for me, Keith. And again, I want to be transparent. He was number 5 for me in the I think I was kind of out on an island there, but of the 5 guys I mentioned a few minutes ago, I was a little lower on Dylan Harper coming out of high school into college, and he just impressed me all year long.
Yeah.
Physical build, plays with it, but he doesn't get enough credit for his nuance. I think sometimes these guys that are either super athletic, which Dylan isn't, or have these great like frames and bodies, don't get enough credit for the nuance they play. And Dylan Harper has a nasty in and out dribble, has nuance around the rim, knows how to operate ball screens. But Carter Bryant, this is why I think San Antonio is a big winner of the draft for me. Getting Carter Bryant at 14, and that fits perfectly with what you want to add around Victor Wembanyama. And honestly, the trio of guards they have in De'Aaron Fox, Steph Castle, and Dylan Harper. Get a forward that can really stretch the floor and play defense.
Yeah, and when I say this, I do not mean I'm not criticizing fans for taking this approach, because fans aren't diving into the draft and watching a ton of tape and all that stuff. So they'll look at a stat line and be like, I'm a little confused. Like, because if you look at Carter Bryant's stat line, you're going to be like, this guy averaged like 8 points per game. But in a way, I think that's actually going to really help him in the NBA, at least early, because he played on an Arizona team that had some older players, had some older guards, especially, that didn't have a whole lot of interest in setting up a freshman for stuff, right? They were kind of more like, I like Caleb Love enough, but like Caleb Love was, I'm going to get mine, right?
Sure.
So Carter Bryant stepped right in and was like, all right, I'll be a role player. I'll defend my butt off. And when the ball comes to me, I'll do the best I can with it. I thought he shot it better than I expected, because I'd heard shots a little shaky. Let's see what that looks like. And then I think he's a pretty good athlete and finisher. And I think on this Spurs team, right, Wemby's going to have the ball a lot, and a lot's going to run through him. But they now have Fox, Castle, and Harper, who that fit is a little odd. It's a little off.
Yeah.
But when you have Wembanyama, you have a long runway to just let's kind of see and figure things out. And my guess is in a couple years, one of those 3 guys is not a Spur, and they've moved on from them. But for a guy like Carter Bryant, all right, I'll just play my role. I'll defend when it comes my way and I'm open, I'll shoot. I think he's going to be really, really good with this in the NBA. I'm with you on Harper. Jump shot is a little shaky.
Sure.
We'll see what happens. That's why it's a little bit of a weird fit with Castle and Fox, who also aren't great shooters and not great off-ball players. But again, the Spurs will figure it out. There's lineups where you can play all 3 of those guys together because Harper and Castle have good size and they can play up defensively. So I'm very curious to see how it all comes together in San Antonio. I want people to have some patience, because I think we're going a little quick with Wemby's awesome. We have to push through to be a playoff team. I don't know that the team feels that yet. I think, that they're going to have patience with these guys.
Real quick on Carter Bryant, listen, I don't always love doing per 36 minutes, per 40 minutes stuff, because it's, projecting out that way is tough. But I will say that the volume of attempts, even if you go per 40 minutes, he didn't even get 10 field goal attempts per 40 minutes, to your point of how much he was a focal point of the offense. Now that might be a negative for some people, but for me, it's to your point, he's going to come in and he's going to be okay just being in the corner and then just being ready for his catch and shoot opportunity or his cut. Here are the numbers that are interesting. Per 40 minutes, 8.5 rebounds, almost 2 offensive, 2 assists. I think he actually passes the ball better than the assist to turnover ratio. That'll be a common theme as we go throughout this. And then 4 stocks per game. 2 steals, 2.1 blocks. This is a defensive disruptor, and you're adding that to the defensive disruption of Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, this kid is nasty on defense too. And what I like is he looks like one of those kind of, again, I'm not going to put the bar on him because it's a super high bar, but it kind of feels a little like Herb Jones, same attitude wise, where I'm here to mess up your night. Like I am going to make sure you leave here not feeling good. Like, and that's I love a kid like that. He's a great kid. Like, so I don't mean it in it, but I want you to be mean as a defender.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I want you to make the other side angry. And yeah, I think, Harper was the right pick at 2, and I think they hit a home run with Brian at 14 because that can be one where because he dropped a little bit, right?
Yeah,
not super far, but a little. And sometimes you do see teams are like, wait, what is everybody else not seeing? That like why? And you can overthink it. And then other times it's like, nope, stay true to your board and go. Two things. One, can you in the chat drop me in the private chat, drop me that link to the thing you're on, just so I have it too. But who did you? I haven't seen a lot for the Spurs.
No, so I was actually going to let us just go through this one. Cam Carter out of LSU, Agbo out of USC, like not names I'm crazy. Like I was just in any names. I'm like, okay, these are guys I've really scouted. I'm interested in. Sure. Like we're going to do Philly next. I'm all 4 of those guys are guys that we can talk about. That we can talk about a little bit. I know one of them we texted about a few days ago.
Yep.
So like Philly's undrafted stuff is a little bit more interesting. Real quick on Dylan Harper, guys. I'm a tier person. Dylan Harper was alone as the number 2 prospect in that tier. That for me means all 30 teams draft Dylan Harper regardless of anything else, essentially. Like you would have to really pitch me on something to get me to trade out, maybe. But for people who are like, why would you draft Dylan Harper whenever you have De'Aaron Fox and Steph Castle? It's because for me, and I think in general, he was clearly the number 2 prospect in a tier by his own. And that's when you start to get the reach territory, is when you start breaking tiers for fit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% how my tiers broke out too. I had the Cooper Flag tier, the Dylan Harper tier. Then I got into the more kind of normal several guys in a tier grouping with that. All right, so let's move to Philly.
Yep.
They stick at 3. They did not trade the pick. That was heavily rumored coming that they would trade back, maybe trade out and try to dump Paul George's contract. It was funny in some of their post-draft stuff. They were kind of like, that was seemed like a weird internet created thing that we're going to do that. But as far as dumping Paul George, they did reference like, yeah, we could have traded back, but they picked VJ Edgecombe. They did not go with Ace Bailey. We'll get to Ace Bailey for reference. Ace Bailey was number 3 on my board, but I flip-flopped him in Edgecombe from 3 and 4 about 1,000 times. So I have absolutely no issue with this pick. I think this gives them a little bit of cover if Quentin Grimes, things get weird with his free agency, because now you've got a true 2 on the roster. I think even if Grimes leaves, a backcourt rotation of Maxey, McCain, and Edgecombe is really good. Like you're in a really good place there. VJ Edgecombe, and it was like a year ago that I was like, this VJ Edgecombe kid is something, huh? Because I had watched him play for Bahamas at the Olympic qualifying tournament, and that's where I'd heard about him, but that's where he like full on popped for me. And I was like, he's playing high level national team minutes in meaningful games with other NBA guys on the floor, and he looks like the best player out here. And from that moment forward, I was like, I love this kid. Again, weird year at Baylor. Baylor early on had the Duke kid, Jeremy Roach, was like running the show. And again, was more like, let's get Jeremy Roach some shots. When they switched to Rob Wright, who I like quite a bit, Rob Wright's much more of a real point guard, which again, Rob Wright was like the point guard for the Cooper Flag,
I was gonna say,
Derek Queen Montverde team.
Montverde, stand up.
Yeah. So when he started running the team, I think Edgecombe took off a little bit more with that, but I'll let you go.
No, I also want to point out, like, that was the Olympics, like the real Olympics team. And like, with all due respect, not the FIBA U19s that are starting today, which, guys, if you want to get a head start on the 2026 draft, which I already have a board built out to like 75 players, you can start watching those games. I believe they start today. I don't know. There's a resource. I retweeted or quote tweeted a resource over on the Motor City Hoops Twitter. Go look at that. And it's a Google Drive from somebody else. They put together the names you want to look at. And it's not just the USA guys. There's the other countries have guys you want to get familiar with as well. Love VJ, love him in transition, love the defensive potential, love the athleticism. The big thing for VJ for me, and one reason why I kept him. Listen, I have 4 or 5 guys in this next tier. So like I have no problem with this pick whatsoever. I want to be very clear. I want to see the jumper stick. I think it's going to, but it's got to speed up. I started watching how low his dip is at times, and I'm like, that's going to be an issue in the NBA. I'll be interested to see it at Summer League because he's not going to be able to change it between the draft and Summer League, right? But I'm interested to see how impactful it is. And then, like, what else can he like do stuff off the bounce? Is he gonna be able to finish at the rim in the half court, even with that athleticism? Can he pass? Like all of those things. But I'm fine with him here. And the more I looked at their rotation, the more I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. Like, even if they bring Grimes back, like you now all of a sudden have this really awesome backcourt. Maybe you play a little bit small at times and figure it out. There's going to be minutes for all 4 of those guys. And then now you can have your focus on the front court and like bigger wings forwards, which is an issue or a concern right now, but I'm completely fine with VJ Edgecombe here. Again, I had all of these guys in the same tier, these next 4 guys in the same tier.
Yeah, I was a little more encouraged when I dug in a little bit that he did better as a spot up shooter than I thought, and a little bit better on some catch and shoot stuff on the move than I thought he would. But you're right, there is a little bit of a dip and almost like a little swing in there where it's like he kind of catches it and comes off his hip versus having it high early. And sometimes I don't worry about that as much because I think the end motion is okay.
Sure.
So it's just changing the getting to that point. And that's that right now you go to work, right? And you're right. Like we probably aren't going to see a big change in Summer League. I want to see him in Summer League have those couple moments where somebody's guarding him, catches the ball at the top of the key. He's like, you're not keeping me from getting where I want to go.
Yeah.
His finishing was a little weird at times at Baylor. I think he gets a little too cute around the rim versus trusting himself to like go up and explode and finish. Like you can, like just do that. Like instead of let me hang and kind of try to flip the ball off the backboard. It's funny. It's a very different player. It almost reminds me of Jason Tatum early on when he had all those like, watch how much English I can put on this and watch it drop in. And it's like, yeah, dude, the once every 6 times it works, it's really cool. But like, can you just finish strong? And now like that's completely gone and out of his game and it's good. So yeah. So I am really like super excited of like for Philly with VJ Edgecombe. And yeah, you keep Grimes, you've got a deep backcourt. All right, I want to go to their 2nd round pick now because you know I love this guy.
Yeah.
Janai Broome, I thought should have gone in the 1st round. I get why he didn't. Not super athletic, not going to, show up in a way where you're like, oh my gosh, look at he, monster throwdown and, bounced off the trampoline. Like none of that stuff. Much more ground bound. But in an older prospect too. And then there were some things that had come up with like his foot and ankle late in his last year at Auburn that I think maybe scared teams a little bit. But I think all around we're in a spot where for Janai Broome for Philly, this is a good place for him. Andre Drummond picked up his player option. So Broome comes in as kind of like the 3rd center on this team, maybe even 4th because Dembona is coming back too.
Sure.
But he's going to get to learn. He's going to go against good guys, good NBA veterans every day in practice. His feel for the game is terrific. He's a really good passer for a big man. You can run all that DHO stuff, fake DHOs. He loves to run the fake DHO quick attack.
Yeah.
Like as long as he's getting to his left hand, because he's like, I don't know that I've ever seen him shoot with his right hand. But really solid, pretty solid in the post. Jump shot comes and goes. I think it'll be okay. Free throw shooting's not great, so I do worry about that. And then defensively, I think he's just a smart defender. Because again, not super athletic, but like always in the right position. Pretty good shot blocker because his timing is solid on that. I think Philly, again, another team that hit a home run with their 1st and 2nd round picks.
Real quick here, shameless plug. Over on the Motor City Hoops Substack, it's completely free for everybody because Janai Broome was in the range of the Pistons. I have a video breakdown over there. So from now on, I'll just quickly mention like, hey, I have a video breakdown on this player. I won't go through this whole spiel, but Janai Broome is one. Some of them are like 7 minutes, 8, 10 minutes, whatever. It's very, very little Piston centric. Like you may hear a couple references, but I have one on Janai Broom for Sixers fans or just NBA draft fans in general. Go check that out on the Motor City Hoops Substack. I even have it on my timeline somewhere on Twitter.
Let me answer this question real quick
Yeah.
from Mechanized. How long will this breakdown take? 12 hours. It's not going to take 12 hours. Bryce has work to do. And I have writing to get done before free agency starts. We're probably going to go till about 10 o'clock ish. So we'll pick up the pace here as we go on. We're not going to go this deep in every single team and pick. But yeah, so just know we're probably going to be here for a while this morning. So I get if people need to drop out and come back, that's perfectly fine.
And a couple teams don't have picks. Like the
Correct.
Pistons only had one second round guy that, you know, we'll spend, a couple minutes on. But I agree with a lot of what you said on Broom. The one thing I'll say is like for a 5-year college player, he's only 22 and just turned 22. So it's not like he's 25. But he was super successful, started at Morehead State, then went to Auburn, and the numbers didn't really change. You know what I mean? Like he was super impactful, averaged over 10 rebounds, nightmare on the offensive boards. I have him as like a third or high-end fourth big, and whenever I call him a big, I mean he may be able to slide into the 4 at times. Like I think the high-end outcome is a Bobby Portis type of player. And then probably a better positional defender. You said it perfectly. The athleticism, I don't know that the stock numbers are going to be the same in the NBA because the athleticism, but he's going to be in the right spot. He's going to be smart. Maybe like the other Jalen Williams with the Thunder, he'll try to take charges as opposed to block shots. Like that's the type of defender. I'll stop there on Broom because I know this is a team. There's some at least one undrafted free agent each of us probably want to talk about.
Yeah, go. You can go ahead. All right. Well, I go ahead and run through them, and then stop wherever you want. Talk about.
Yeah. So Hunter Salas, Wake Forest, Igor Milicic, Tennessee, Ethan Almanza, Perth, and then St. Thomas, USC. I will quickly say, like, I thought if St. Thomas would have went out last year from Northern Colorado, I don't know if he would have got drafted, but I think he would have definitely got a 2-way. He went to USC, all of this stuff, but he really interesting player for him. I love Hunter Salas. Like he is that player I cannot quit. I just think he has potential to be like a bucket getter off the bench. Like it's going to take a little while. The numbers didn't pop the way that they would need to get drafted. I understand why he didn't, but I'm really, really intrigued by Hunter Salas. I think this is a real interesting name of undrafted free agents for the Sixers.
Yeah, Salas is a kid who might have also benefited had he come out last year.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think going back, actually, you heard him. And that's just, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. That's going to be a theme we're going to have to watch now because a lot of guys are going to go back to school.
Yep.
Like I think like Yaxel Lindeborg.
Yep.
Right. Was going back to school, but transferring up a level because he's going to Michigan.
Yeah.
Right.
Michigan.
So going up a level, if it doesn't go as well for him, a lot of people had him as a late first rounder this year. That could be now all of a sudden you drop into that early second round territory and going back to school might hurt. I don't think it's going to be very clear. And I'm not predicting that, but just something to keep an eye on with some of these guys here. Yeah. I like Almanza.
Yep.
Did no one ever go watch that G League Ignite team? Because you're just going to come away and be like, well, the good news is you'll come away and be like, I understand why the NBA shut this thing down.
Yes.
That team was disgusting.
It was awful.
Nobody had any interest in playing basketball for each other on that team other than occasionally Modest Buzelis. And that's shown up why he's kind of had a nice year with the Bulls. Everybody else was like, I'm here to get myself drafted. I don't really care about all the rest. What I think is with Almanza, though, is I think there's real skill. This is a kid who 2 years ago was being talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick when things were going. Now, I think that was a little crazy. But there's first round talent in there.
Sure.
If it can be harnessed. I kind of wonder if he's going to be, now that he didn't get drafted and a team's not super invested, is he going to be more of, he does another year in the G League and then he's like, forget this, I'm going overseas where I can make a good living and just be home. So we'll see, where it goes with him. And then Igor Milicic is an interesting kid too. I actually had a couple people text me and be like, look, I know you're a Janai Broom guy, but I actually like Milicic undrafted for Philly more than I like Broom as a player. Just people would think he's another guy who has good feel. I had someone say if he could carve out a Mo Wagner type role where just kind of be an irritant, like get under guys' skin, knock guys around a little bit, do some stuff that maybe he could make it in the NBA. But definitely an interesting undrafted group for Philly.
Yeah, I like it again, and I'm with Almanza's. I've always been a touch lower, but like as an undrafted free agent, that's a home run try. Salas as an undrafted, and they got one last year in Justin Edwards, who I think just got a new contract yesterday.
Yes.
That ended up. That's the thing about Philly. The Paul George thing didn't pan out, Joel Embiid stuff, but they actually drafted Jared McCain. That was a steal where they drafted him. And then getting Justin Edwards. And I mean, even Adem Bona may look like a third center. So like this could be back-to-back really nice draft classes for the Sixers.
Well, they have done. I mean, Ricky Council was in that same boat and has turned into being like a real NBA player too. So yeah, they do good work with the draft, the undrafted, the development. I like that they are very linked now with their G League team and using their G League team. And that we're going to talk more about that with some guys in the second round that are definitely were drafted to help the G League team. Develop and play. We're both big on, hey, if you can get a guy who can help everybody in the organization, let's do that there. So, all right, let's move to Charlotte. Very busy night for the Hornets. They picked Con Knipple at number 4. Then they traded Mark Williams for a pick for the 29th pick in Vasily Micic. I'll touch on the Micic situation very quickly here. We're not going to do a lot on the Williams trade either. Trevor and I already broke that down. But with Micic, just rumor is he's probably going to work a buyout with Charlotte after that trade. He's already got EuroLeague offers. There was even a thought of he may even have already signed, which I know he hasn't signed because FIBA wouldn't have cleared it for him to sign, but he probably already has an agreement in place. Very unlikely he's with Charlotte unless things get really weird with that. And we saw last year player give up his entire contract to go back over to Europe. So that could be how this plays out. So let's just keep an eye on that. And then in the second round, they went with Sion James and
Kalkbrenner.
Ryan Kalkbrenner. Yeah. So Charlotte needed, they needed, but they also were very open about they wanted high character guys who were going to work, like put in work. I'm a little worried that that's turning into, so they drafted 3 white guys. Cause I think that's not that's not why they did that. Like that's I've seen too much of that already, but I can tell you Con Knipple people really fell in love with in the year at Duke through the pre-draft process. He killed it. Liam McNeely is a kid I was super high on. I had him 8th on my board, which I took a lot of crap for. But I believe I watched this kid play at Montverde on a stacked team, and multiple times it was like, is this the guy? Like I had people in the stands. So Montverde doesn't necessarily have their names on the backs of their jerseys. And I had people in the stands who were like, wait, is the kid with the headband Cooper Flag? And it's like, he's not. Like, that's Liam McNeely. But that's how good he was on that Montverde team at times. His year at UConn was super messy. It got really he got hurt. That UConn team wasn't what that UConn team had been the past couple of years. A couple older players who were, again, a little more out for themselves. And I think when he was healthy, he showed up and played really well. And then I like both of their second round picks. They got a very needed center. Yeah. Kalkbrenner will come in and play behind Nurkic is my guess, at least initially. And then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. And Sion James is an interesting kid too, Knipple's Duke teammate. So you have a lot of guys there that I think are pretty good, high character players that are going to be, pretty solid fits for the Hornets around LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller.
This team shot 34% from 3 last year, which was 28th in the NBA. And Con Knipple has an argument for the best shooter in the draft. A guy we're going to talk about in the next couple of picks also has an argument for that, as well as a few. I mean, Kobe Bryant is the best shooter in the draft. It's just when you add in what else there is.
Yeah.
But Con Knipple can really, really shoot the basketball. And I think is going to be like a team defender. We'll see how he holds up at the point of attack, all of that. Ceiling stuff, how much can you do off the bounce? Listen, I've watched a ton of Liam McNeely basketball going back to his junior year at Montverde. Liam McNeely can shoot the basketball. I know what the percentages say. I know you can go to Real GM and be like, Bryce, at 33. I've watched it. I just believe. I'm not telling you you have to believe. I'm saying I believe that he can space the floor. And I think if you look pre and post ankle injury, I think that's part of it. They also were asking him to play on the ball because
Yeah.
they didn't hit on their point guard situation going from last season to this season. And so he was playing out of role. No, that's not bad. It probably was a great learning experience for Liam McNeely and helping him grow. I just think when you put him on an NBA court coming off the bench early in his career, and LaMelo Ball is creating shots for him or whoever, and he's just knocking down shots, running transition, grabbing offensive boards, taking charges, diving on the floor, doing what he does. I think that's really good value where they had him or where they drafted him. So I love those picks. And then I'm with you. Sion James, point of attack defender. Does he knock down shots? That ends up being a rotation player if he does. And then Kalkbrenner is going to be like, I'm not as high on him as some. But with that said, at this spot, it's perfectly like this is great value, like 100%. And so, especially when your center room is a little bit of a mess, which is okay. You're not trying to win the East next year. I think he could be a long-term second big. At worst, he's your third center that comes in and provides defense.
That's it. I think with him, he's like a 10-year backup big
Sure.
man, and that's fine, right? Can he be like Luke Cornett?
Yep.
What he's become? Sure. And he stepped out and shot it more than I
That's
ever
the thing.
thought
That's
he would.
the swing thing, Keith.
Yeah.
Like people who had him solidly in the first round think that he shoots it eventually.
If he does that, then all right, maybe we even have more, right? We occasionally see these second round centers turn into pretty good starters, right? And it's like, okay, I think you're probably in a spot where let's even say they're like, hey, Nurkic is not our guy, right? He's like, we have him, but we're not going to build it around him. All right, so you move forward with Kalkbrenner, and then you move into, you get another guy, and now you've got 48 minutes of center play covered, and off you go. And they still have like Grant Williams will be back, who can play small ball five,
sure,
quite a bit, and we'll see what he looks like coming off of the injury with him. So we'll see with that. But yeah, so, they're undrafted guys. I don't see a whole lot there. So
I agree.
Let's move forward and pick up the pace a little bit. All right, let's get to Ace Bailey. Let's start with the whole, is he even going to go to Utah? It came out yesterday. Yes, he'll be in Utah probably by the time a lot of people listen to this. It sounds like he's going to get there today. They weren't really super concerned about it, or at least they put on a really good face about it. The Jazz did, because they were like, hey, as long as he's here by Monday or Sunday night to check in, because Monday they have like a summer league camp starting. They were like, as long as he's here for that, we don't care. His rep said he's ready. He'll be in Utah. He's going to go. Whether that is somebody told them, you doesn't matter if you want to or not. Like, there's no real other options here. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Trevor and I did. The only real option is sit out entirely from playing anywhere professionally for a year, and he could re-enter the draft. That wasn't going to happen. He'll be with the Jazz. That said, I think he is going to be really, really, really good. The pre-draft process was weird. I think it was bad. I don't think it's a way they ever should have handled it. But this kid can really score the ball, and he can do other stuff. He's a pretty good rebounder for his position. He, when engaged, was actually a pretty good defender. He has some nice off-ball stuff where he came out of nowhere to get a block and showed up that way. I'm a big, big fan of his kind of all-around skill set, even if his single biggest thing is his scoring right now. And yeah, he likes to take an easy 15-footer and turn it into a really tough 12-foot turnaround contested shot. I get that. And also, I do get a little worried when guys don't win at the college level, but that Rutgers team was just a complete disaster class.
Yeah.
It was the most thrown together college team I've ever seen. And I think that was a good example of, you can't just go get a whole bunch of dudes in the portal and throw them with a freshman and think it'll just be fine. Like, you have to build an actual team. And, and it got a little weird. And quite frankly, there was a lot of him and Harper, do whatever you want, right? Like we're not even going to force you into doing other stuff. But I'm a pretty big fan of Ace Bailey.
Yeah, to be clear, I also had Ace still at 3 on my board. I've mentioned a couple times now I had 4 guys. These 4 guys we're talking about with Knipple, with VJ, and then Trey Johnson next, all in the same tier, which means depending on team fit, structure, all of that, I'm not going to argue with any one of those guys. I think this is a decent spot for Ace Bailey. I actually was someone that didn't want him to go somewhere where he was going to immediately be the number 1 option. I like that he's going to Utah where Lauri Markkanen is still going to be the guy. And so Ace doesn't have number 1 option put on him from the start, but is still going to have freedom to and a big role, because I do think he needs that. If you want him to hit his ceiling, he probably needs to have a big role. But what I also like is that Will Hardy, I think, will get him off the ball, off screens, those type of things, get him shots that way early in his career, not just straight isolations. I don't think you want Ace Bailey 15 mid-post isolations early in his career, yeah. Right? Like, you want him doing other stuff. Got the defense, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm a little more encouraged in what it could be. It's not there yet, but if you get him locked in, it could be impactful. The rebounding, I even think it sometimes his passing wasn't as bad as people, like the assistant turnover is negative, right? And so people will just immediately point to that. I would just say, go watch a game and then count how many times he actually makes a good read and a shot isn't made or it's fumbled or teammates not in the right spot. Now, you have to do that with all players. I'm not saying he's a great passer. I'm just saying sometimes there's some context in these things when you go solely off assist to turnover numbers. So I'm perfectly fine with this for the Jazz with Ace Bailey. My worry in Utah is like, they got it. Like, I would love for them to sign a veteran point guard, like just, and they can't because they have so many guards, Keith. It's like, okay, how is he going to play without taking away from our young guys? That's my concern in Utah, especially for Ace Bailey.
So that's a great point. And I think that was part of the motivation behind trading up in the back half of the first round to get Walter Clayton Jr.
Sure.
He's not a veteran NBA point guard, but he's an older player who can come in. NBA rookies spend a lot of time with each other just because they're kind of going through all the same stuff, and the teams will put them together on a lot of things. And I think the idea was giving Walter Clayton with Ace Bailey was, let's give him somebody who's going to be like, hey, come on, man, we got to get to bed. We got to do these things. I'll say this. We're going to get into Clayton now, but I want to say one more thing on Ace Bailey. People started painting him as a bad kid. Yeah, he is not a bad kid.
I have not heard that at all.
Yeah, there's none of that. He got really weird advice on how to handle the pre-draft process. It should not have happened this way. It shouldn't have played out that way. But I did not like some of the things were like, oh, is this kid going to be trouble off the court? Is there legal stuff? There's none of that going on. He's a good kid. Everybody who knows him, he's immature, but he's 19 years old. I'm not going to stress about the fact that he's goofy in warm-ups and he likes to sing during practice. Like, whatever, he's 19. I don't really care about that stuff. That's normal.
Remember last year when Jared McCain shouldn't have gotten picked because he had too big of a TikTok following and painted his fingernails? Like, really? You know what? The dude puts the ball in the basket and plays hard and seems like a great kid. Like, he honestly seems like a very personable kid that would be fun to be around. So I'm like, I
don't like the whole, like, McCain was a good one where it's like, hey, instead of painting your nails, get in the gym. These guys are going to be in the gym for 20 hours a day.
They're a lot. Listen, Keith, I try not to do this, but I played Division I basketball.
Yes.
And like, my team's made, not because of me, but we played an NCAA tournament, like good Division I basketball teams. I tell people all the time, I played as much PlayStation as any other kid because I prioritized my time. I went to practice, I went to class, I got my work done, and then I sat there in games for 3 hours in the Am I not supposed to have a life out?
Yes.
I think it would almost be unhealthy for me to not get out of the gym every once in a while. So, like, they have to have a life. Now, can it go too far? Absolutely. If they're never getting in the gym, that is an issue. But they can I will also quickly say, this is why representation matters. And this may have been like his representation, just like mismanaging or like had a really good plan, but didn't execute it or whatever. I'm not like trying to throw shade. I'm just saying, when people say, why do they need agents? Example of why you need an agent. The other side of it is Austin Reeves. And I'm sure people get tired of hearing it as an example, but that agency, positioned him exactly where they wanted him and played it correctly. I don't know where they were trying to get Ace or whatever, but this one didn't end up working out well. And this is why you have to like do these things the correct way.
Here it is, Bryce. Would have been in the NBA if you hadn't been playing so much PlayStation.
If I would have been like 50% more athletic and didn't tear my ACL 3 times, I might have made it overseas.
Yeah, Bryce, and this is why I appreciate so much having you doing this stuff, because you have the perspective of playing high-level college basketball. Like and you know what it's like to be a college basketball player. I apologize, guys. The dogs see something. This is normally on a Saturday morning, they're playing and running around and tearing around. All right, let's get into Walter Clayton Jr. I don't like to use all the stereotypical terms, but like the kid's just a winner. Like he just is a winner. Like he's competitive. He's tough. He's a big shot maker. There are all the things that every coach from the time he played bitty league ball all the way through has ever said and loves about a player. Is Walter Clayton Jr. has every single one of those traits.
Yeah, and he knocks down shots. Keith, sorry. I knew I was going to do that once. I'm so used to it. He just, whenever you need floor spacing, you need shot making. And here's he is a little bit shorter. Like he will get pegged as a smaller guard, especially as much as he's going to play off the ball. But the thing is, he is athletic. I don't think he gets enough credit for how athletic he is. And he has this strong build. If he is going to make it, one, the shooting has to stay elite as the superpower, but then just like that physical build, that athleticism will help him survive on the defensive end. He's not going to be a positive defensively. He probably just has to get to neutral, and then the elite shot making makes him playable. But I don't mind this. Like Utah has a bunch of guards. I don't know which ones stick, which ones don't. I believe Clarkson and Sexton are now on the last year of their deals. I don't know what they think about Keontae George, Isaiah. Like I realized I was okay with them adding another guard because I just don't know that you got to find out how to play all of them, right? Like you got to figure out the development. We're going to talk about that with the Nets and why I have some concerns with how they drafted. But I don't mind this, especially with the floor spacing that Clayton provides.
Yeah, I think with this one too, it's just going to take a little bit of time to sort out that guard group. Like in Sexton, Clarkson could both be traded in the next week or so.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll see. That could free up time. I have heard more people in Utah now are like Keontae George, probably not a point guard. Probably best is a combo guard off the bench, maybe is where that goes. And that maybe he's more of the two, and then Clayton slides in behind Collier. Collier had some really nice moments as a late in his rookie season. He really started to figure some stuff out with that. And then, all right, so in the second round, they traded the earlier pick as part of the deal to move up. But then they got John Tonji late in the second round. That's fine as a flyer. Probably will be on a two-way contract. Probably spend a lot of time with the Salt Lake City team in the G League. I'm not too worried about anything they did there. And then interesting that they were the one who got the St. John's kid.
RJ Lewis.
Yeah, RJ Lewis is an undrafted guy, which is, I think he made the wrong choice now.
Correct.
Very clearly, should have taken the NIL money and stayed in college and maybe improved his stock to be a higher second round pick. I think that one was just that feels like the old school, like I'm in a rush to turn pro move. But for the Jazz, great flyer right in the second round.
Sure.
Get him the G League. Sure. Let's see what it looks like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Like, I feel bad for him because you know how much money he could be making in college, and it's like, but he made his decision. Now he's got to make the most of it. He's still getting an opportunity to go and play. And then I'll just quickly mention Steven Kroll here from Wisconsin, like a big that has some floor spacing potential. I'm cool with taking flyers on that as undrafted free agents. He's a guy that shot 42% on over 40% on right around 2 attempts the last couple of years, good free throw percentage. Like, again, you get a guy like that in your organization. If he figures the other stuff out, can actually space the floor, then that becomes a great value as an undrafted free agent.
It knows how to play with Tonji. So as you build out,
played together at Wisconsin. Yep.
roster, like you already have a little bit of chemistry there. All
Great
right,
call.
we're gonna have to pick up the pace
Yep.
quite a bit to get you to work because we're 5 picks in, or we're really more than that because we've discussed seconds already. But all right, Trey Johnson to the Washington Wizards at number 6. They also got Will Riley in that trade we referenced with the Jazz, and then in the second round, Jameer Watkins as part of that trade as well. So then their kind of draft night haul is Trey Johnson, Will Riley, and Jameer Watkins. A little overlappy between the 3 guys, but that's fine. The Wizards are in talent collection mode with that. Trey Johnson, all I'm going to say on him is he became one of my favorite players because he was he's so damn audacious. Like, this kid walks on the floor, is like, I'm the best player out here. I'm going to show you guys. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It is just he plays with such an extreme confidence, and he can shoot the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
Make all kinds of shots. I don't know how much he's ever going to do beyond that, but that still is a valued skill. And I like throwing that in there with that Washington group because of their young group, which I really like what they're putting together. They didn't have somebody like that. That is I'm going to go get buckets. I'm going to score. And I like that idea for them.
Yep, shooter, advantage exploiter, in the mid-range, not at the rim, to attack on the second side. Once I started evaluating Trey Johnson as an off-the-ball secondary scorer and not an on-ball primary creator for himself, I really fell in love with what his game was, what he could provide. And I will say this, purposely saying Sam this time, he says Trey Johnson is like one of the hardest workers in this class. Like, he watched him work out and all of that, and he just raved about it. So I think that is huge. 15 of 29 3-pointers off screens, 5 of 12 off handoffs. So that's 20 of 41 on kind of those movement off different types of screens. Good off the catch, solid off the dribble. Not going to be an at the rim finisher, I don't think, in the NBA, but I like what he does off the ball in regards to that. I really warmed up to Trey Johnson throughout the year, and especially when the measurements came in. I say height with shoes. I just add an inch because I hate the without shoes. So
it's
essentially,
stupid. We don't play barefoot.
Yeah. And I realize people can manipulate it with their shoes. I don't care. He's 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan. Like, he's got to put on a little bit of, strength and stuff to his frame. That's going to be a common theme with these first 2 guys, because Will Riley's the same way. Like, Will Riley is a wing that can do a little bit of everything. I call them advantage exploiters. Can you knock down shots? Can you attack a closeout? Can you move the ball a little bit? He's got to be consistent with the jumper. I think with Will Riley, he's going to be successful. He is a talented young player if he fills out his frame, puts on some muscle. But I like that at 21. I was fine with that. And then Jameer Watkins is real interesting in a very older player, and he's can really defend, which I like adding that aspect. He's one that'll be interesting to figure out his offensive role, Keith, because in college, he almost plays like a point guard, like as a primary initiator, got to the free throw line a bunch because he was just bigger, stronger, more mature than everybody else. So figuring out that offensive role in the NBA will be important for Jameer.
Yeah, and then kind of continuing what was apparently their theme, Kadari Richmond is an undrafted.
Same thing.
Let's grab a whole bunch of 6'6" dudes and throw them out there together and see what it looks like. They're going to be a really fun summer league team because I think you're going to at least see Carrington and George and maybe Sarr
for a game or two, maybe.
Yeah, appearances. So catch them early if you're going to catch them. But yeah, fun group there in Washington. I couldn't be higher on what the Wizards are building. Again, we're not going to talk, but they could have $100 million in cap space. I think the veteran guys, Middleton, Smart, McCollum, Olynyk, are going to be around early in the year. I don't think maybe they make another trade for one of them this summer, but I think those guys are going to be around because the idea is they want those guys there to help teach and push the kids, and that's going to be great. I mean, it's awesome for Trey Johnson that he's going to get to go against Marcus Smart in practice. Like, Smart still is going to make his life miserable, every day in training camp because he's going to be all over him defensively. So, but I'm super, super excited about the Wizards.
Chris Middleton for those wings is going to be awesome as well, right? Like to your point here. And I will just say, because we're going to talk about the Nets in a couple, in 2 picks, I would rather go all in on a bunch of wings because you can play multiple wings than I would rather than going in on multiple primary initiators. And
Yeah.
that will make more sense when we talk about the Nets.
All right, let's do it. Let's get to the Pelicans. Kind of a rough night. I am open to the idea. I don't hate Jeremiah Fears. I don't hate Derek Queen. I like them both enough. It was a little too high for me for Fears. I worry he's small and he did not shoot well. So that part has me concerned. Small guards who can't shoot, you better be elite at other stuff, including defense. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard for you to make it. That said, he's pretty good. Like, he gets where he needs to go. He's pretty athletic as far as speed and quickness goes. I think he gets good rise. Was a really good free throw shooter, has always been a really good free throw shooter. That tends to translate into eventually becoming a good jump shooter with that. Defensively, I think there's going to be challenges. I feel bad for Herb Jones. I mean, we make the Deion Sanders joke, right? 2/3 of the world is covered by water. The other third is covered by Herb Jones. But like, that's going to have to be really how it is for New Orleans. Cause like they were like, defense, who cares? Cause I like Derek Queen, but Derek Queen is not making his bones as a defender at all. The fit with Queen and Zion is super weird. Like, I don't even know how you'd build a passable defense with those two guys playing together. So there's got to be way more to come here. They've just feel like they've got all these guys now. And I don't know that they have a point guard organizer that can even put them in a place, because DeJounte Murray, as much as let's get healthy and get back, that's not really what he does. And then Fears as a rookie is not going to do that. Jose Alvarado does that to an extent, but you're talking about a backup point guard. So just a really messy thing. And then I'll just touch on it briefly. Giving up that unprotected best of Pelicans and Bucks pick next year to move up for Queen like this, it better pay off. Otherwise, they're in trouble, because I don't see how in the Western Conference this team is good, which means their own pick might be a good high lottery pick. And we still don't know what's going on with the Bucks. So the Bucks may not be all that good either. The Hawks rather, are going to get a really good pick out of this, I think, next year. And we're going to be having the conversation a year from now going, how did the Hawks? Oh, yeah, it was that trade. And we're not going to know anything at that point definitively about, is Derek Queen even good or not, because we don't really know after a rookie year. But, man, that was a gamble.
Yeah, and they also, to move up, used the 22 or 23 pick, whatever it was. And by doing that, they gave the Pacers back their 2026 first round pick.
Yes.
Like, so they essentially, in a world where shorting other teams is now a conversation, right, with draft picks, the Pelicans essentially chose not to short anybody. And they couldn't have chose the pay. Like, that happened before Halliburton got hurt, but still, it was like, all right, like, it's 23 this year. Don't you want to, like, maybe play the odds that something happens with Indiana next year? Maybe not. But then you choose, like, okay, maybe you think you're going to be awesome, but I don't know. My thing with this is, Keith, it could work, right? Like, sure. Jeremiah Fears might end up being the best primary initiator in the class. I actually really like Derek Queen. I hate that the conversation has been negative because of the process to get him there.
Yeah.
But
in that's the fit conversation.
And the fit, 100%. Yes. That's right. I don't believe in the process that they went through, Keith. Like, that's where I ultimately land on this. It may be successful. There's a difference between process and results. Sometimes you can have bad process and end up with positive results. And this could be one of those situations, because maybe they crushed the evaluations here and it really works out. I think you hit it with Fears. Queen is so much fun. Like, he can really pass. I think he can be a nightmare for bigs to try to guard off the bounce. I think he's a good cutter. The defense is, he's going to have to figure it out, because, like, size-wise, can he play the 5? Can he move to play the 4? I will just mention, this, like, was almost exactly what Troy Weaver did with his first draft in Detroit. He drafted a point guard at number 7. Obviously, that one didn't work out. That's Killian Hayes, for people who don't know. And then he traded, that one actually had protections, at least, that finally conveyed in this class, funny enough. He traded up to get Isaiah Stewart in that draft. Now, these are very different players with Derek Queen, but it was the same idea. Like, I'm going to sell a little bit of our draft capital for the future to go get a guy in our very first year. again, I just don't love the process, Keith. And we'll
Yep.
see. Maybe it pays off for him, though.
Maybe it does. My comp for Derek Queen coming in was right-handed Zach Randolph on offense. Just more ground bound, but really good at getting to his spots. And he's already got a better jump shot than Zach Randolph ever had at any point in his career, and a better passer too. I think you can really run stuff through him.
Yeah,
I think he's,
I agree.
I think he's your which every team wants now, right? That big that you can put at the top of the key and just run some stuff through. So yeah, I'm not happy with the let's bash Derek Queen part of the analysis that's happened so much over the last few days, because I think the kid's going to be really, really good. Good kid too. He's just not super athletic. Like that's the issue, right? Zion is super athletic, but it's like, so if you could merge the two of them together and be like, hey guys, actually like just care a little on the defensive end, like it'd be fine, with that. But it's just going to be a little bit of a weird fit. We'll see kind of how that comes together there for them. Micah Peavy in the second round. I think this is hey, we hit once with Herb Jones in the second round. Let's see if we can do it again with a kid who's a little bit more of a defensive minded guy. And then Hunter Dickinson is an undrafted. Okay, right? Why not? Like I was a little higher on him than I think most. I think I got a little too. I think I started overrating the big man a little too much, because there's just, you could still be a pretty productive 7-footer in college basketball just because you're 7 foot tall.
Sure.
And I think I overrated Dickinson too much. I had a couple people tell me he's not getting drafted, and I had him as a higher second rounder.
Sure.
And that's fine. But as an undrafted guy to throw in your system, sure. They don't have a ton at the center spot that I think you are like, that's it long term. Because I don't even know that Queen's not a 4 long term.
Yeah.
And then Misi, I like Yves Misi quite a bit, but I don't know that he's a true starting level center. So I have no problem taking a shot on another guy.
Yeah, that's fine. Like Sam and I kind of made it's a DMV guy, which is kind of the thing with like what they go after. But yeah, like that's fine. PV is interesting here because he can really guard. And if the shooting numbers from this last year are what he actually is, like you have a real 3-and-D guy, because then it's like, because the defense is not going to be a worry. It's like, how does he offense? And the shooting stuff this last season was really impressive. So if that is truly who he ends up being, then that's going to end up being a really good second round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Here's where we're going to make up ground, because we're going to get into the next pick, but we're going to talk 5 first-round picks. I'll just say this. The thing I was most common about most confident in going into the draft process was that Cooper Flagg would go number 1, or draft night, I should say. The second thing, even more than Dylan Harper going number 2, was that the Nets would not make 5 first-round picks for themselves, and they did. And I am shocked. I am stunned. It's funny because it was kind of like, all right, I kind of like that pick. I don't like that pick. I kind of like that pick. I don't like it. Kind of went back and forth on the different picks. My one worry is you drafted a whole bunch of on-ball guys, a whole bunch of guys who are going to be like you said, primary initiators, or like they're point guards that are not point guard. Like I don't know, man. I just a little weird. Yegor Demon. All right, probably a little higher. I will say this: when his coach at college, Kevin Young, came out, who doesn't really need to do this, and was like, look, there's a lot of stuff being said. I was in the NBA forever as an assistant. He's an NBA player. He's going to be really good. I felt a little bit better. And it did come out that he, since the end of BYU season, sounds like did major shot surgery and shot to cover off the ball in workouts. If that translates and is real, this is a great pick, because that's the question. Otherwise, if it's not, you just drafted Josh Giddey 8th overall. Like that's it's kind of a lazy comp, but it's also a real one.
Yeah.
And then you also drafted 2 other point guards. Like, so what are we doing here? Just to run through them all. Yegor Demon at number 8. Then at number 19 was Nolan Traore. At number 26 was Ben Saraf. 27, Danny Wolf, and I'm missing
22, Drake Powell.
Yeah. The pick they got from it's just because I had that as still Atlanta's pick, but just Drake Powell too in there as well. Just to cover off on one thing, Traore is 100% coming over. and it's like 99.9% Saraf is coming over too. There were some thoughts, is Saraf a stash? But
Yeah.
they have said, no, we expect to have all 5 of these guys on roster next year. So I'm going to just wind you up, go with whoever you want there. Talk about whoever.
Real quick, because it applies here, not directly, but when we talk about developing guards, I want to also mention Jeremiah Fears is also a reclass guy, and those guys take time. And so, like, that's another thing. We talk about it all the time. I've heard you say it. Sam says it. Young guards, especially primary initiators, we're seeing it with Scoot Henderson right now.
Yep.
It takes time, and then especially when you're as young as Jeremiah Fears. This is my worry in Brooklyn, Keith. It is hard to develop one primary initiator.
Yes.
How are you going to do 3 of them? Now, my thought was like, some people look at Jaeger Dimon as a wing, and it's like, okay, well, if he can really shoot it, that becomes interesting because now you have maybe the best passer in the draft now playing off the ball, attacking second side advantages, and then making decisions. And that's a plus skill as an off ball secondary decision maker. So, okay, if that's the play, interesting. What kind of value is that at 8? Like, we could get into all of that. But that is my worry. If Jaeger's still a point guard, Traore is a point guard, even though he can do, like, all of these guys can do a little bit off the ball. Saraf can do a little bit off the ball. But you still, like, ultimately you want them with the ball in their hands. Can you develop 3 of them at one time? I just find that hard to believe. And so, like, that was my major issue, as opposed to if they would have drafted 3 wings, 1 point guard, or, even 2 point guards, right? I would be a little bit more okay with it. So that was my thing. Like, I didn't think they were going to take 5 either. Like, I was in the same boat as you, but then it was even more puzzling when they took 3. Again, they're not all the same type of players, but guys that want to play with the ball in their hands first.
I think too, then you factor in, they're very likely, by all accounts, to re-sign Cam Thomas, who certainly is a guy who wants the ball in his hands.
That's true.
And the center you drafted, the first thing people go to is, what's the best thing with the ball in his hands?
Yes, the only one that doesn't want that is Drake Powell. Like, Drake Powell go stand in the corner and knock down shots, and
play defense.
And
so
he's really good at defense. He's really good at defense, by the way. Like, I'm not trying to take shots at Drake Powell, but
let's pause on Drake Powell real quick, because I want to say Drake Powell's year at UNC, it might as well have not played, because, like, and I'm being way overly harsh, but, like, 2 older guards there. This is like a theme for me in this draft, but 2 older guards that did not care at all about setting up the young guys. Like, they were all about, like, I'm going to get my own buckets. Like, I don't care about you. So Drake Powell, like, spent a lot of time playing defense just because, like, I better steal the ball because it might be the only way I actually get it. Here, I actually like Drake Powell. There was a lot of people who had Drake Powell in early on as a mid-lottery pick.
Yeah.
Just because of the athletic profile and all that. His make or break thing will be, does he shoot it well? Right? If he shoots it well, 3-and-D wing, let's go. No problem with that. I like Danny Wolf where they got him.
100%.
They're big groups in transition because Daron Sharp's a restricted free agent. Nick Claxton, we'll see what happens. Is he going to be there or not? I like getting Danny Wolf to be there. He can also play with both those guys because he played as a 4 or functionally as a 4 with Golden at Michigan last year. And he can shoot it a little bit, pretty good passer. He's actually, I think, moves a little better than he gets credit for.
I agree with this.
I don't think it's going to be like switch him out on a point guards on the perimeter and he's going to look awesome, but he can hold up in a switch until you can at least recover. So I like the Danny Wolf pick. It's really the Traore, Saraf, Demon overlap for me is where this got kind of funky for the Nets. Right now, teams want a lot of playmaking and ball handling. They think that's how you beat super athletic, switchy defenses. So I don't have a problem with this idea. It's funny. I had one friend of mine in the league text me and was like, you draft that many guys, that's like taking a quarterback first and then in the 3rd round picking another quarterback just because, like, they're maybe the next best guy. Like, you just kind of don't do it. You go somewhere else and around where, like, especially by the time you got to Saraf, like, you could have went with McNeely, who would have fit as a shooter on the wing. You could have went with Rasheer Fleming for a team that doesn't have, like, real, like 4s on the roster. You could have went with Gonzalez as an upside pick. Like there were a lot of other guys you could have gone with in that range there, and that would have felt a little bit better. If you Traore, I'm okay with. And I don't really have a huge issue. I would have maybe liked it if they came away with Powell and like Aza Newell there, because I think that would have, just with the rest of the picks, it would have made a little bit more sense. And yeah, you don't have to draft a starting 5 out of a group when you used 5 picks, but going this overlap is just a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I think if they wouldn't have drafted Saraf, and listen, I love Ben Saraf. I had Ben Saraf in my top 10 at one point because I think he creates more separation on the ball than about anybody. But it's like after Jaeger, after Traore, I was like, okay, now if they drafted McNeely then, or like the guys you mentioned, I would feel a little bit better. And this is where fit does matter, right? Yes. Fit does matter when you don't break tiers. So I mentioned earlier, you don't break tiers with Dylan Harper and take Carter Bryant at 2 because of fit or something like that. But I know that's an extreme example. You get into this place, like the tiers are so big, Keith. There are options there that are a better fit for your team. And I also point to style of play. I would love to talk to Jordy and see, like, I know him. I use his first name only. How much ball screen stuff are you going to run? Because I think if Jaeger's going to be successful, he needs a ball screen. On ball. Like if it's going to be, but they weren't a ball screen heavy team last year. Was that personnel or was that, the offensive identity of the Nets? So I'm fascinated to see that. I will also quickly say with Jaeger, I know there's a lot of talk about like the mechanics and the workouts and all of that. In a gym shooting is different than in a game shooting. Yeah. And everybody's like, how can you project shooting and the mechanics and the free throw percentage? I agree with all of it, Keith. I will say this from personal experience. There's a huge mental, emotional side of shooting the basketball. Lack of confidence, lack of understanding of your shot diet, like all of those things, they are huge. For some people, they have unrealistic confidence, and that plays out very positively in games. For some people, I will say, like myself, in a gym with nobody else, I'm as confident as anybody. Like I could put up some pretty cool shooting videos, but when you go to a game, I lack confidence. I always questioned, was this the right shot? Was that the right shot? And that's why you see differences for guys whenever you see a workout video and then in a game.
Yeah. We were like 5 years in a row of Mitchell Robinson shooting off the dribble, pull up 3-pointers, and we've never seen it in a game for real reasons.
Yep.
Last thing I'll say on the Nets, because we gotta keep moving, and appreciate the support here from Joe Nadet. Appreciate you for that one. I will say with this, his name is, yes, it is Yegor, is how you say his first name. I at first I thought it was like Igor too. I guess he's Russian. All right, so it's Igor, right? But it's Jaeger is how you say it. So yeah, kind of like Jägermeister, but more like Yegor. With this, I will say, with the Nets, to close it out on them, they only really started their rebuild fully after last year's draft, because they had not locked in the Mikal Bridges trade till after. So this is this team does not have a lot of super young talent. Like Cam Thomas and Daron Sharp are about the youngest guys on the team, and they're at the end of their rookie deals, like, and need new deals this summer. So getting 5 guys, it's weird. It's certainly odd to bring in 5 rookies, but I don't mind taking the full on, let's take a whole bunch of bites at this apple. Let's really try, because they needed, if you're going to be a rebuilding team, you needed to add a whole bunch of teams. I would say pretty good chance this is the worst team in the league next year.
Sure.
We'll if we have time at the end, we'll talk it super loaded draft next year again.
Yeah.
Not the worst thing in the world if you're going to be, really, really bad with that. Grant Nelson's the kind of notable guy they picked up undrafted. Sure. Bring him in, see what it looks like. Yeah. They kind of, Drew Timmy, I think, will be back there, even if he initially is let go. I think he will come back with that. So yes, and please, let's get the likes up on the video. Helps more people find it. Really appreciate you guys for shouting that out. All right, let's move on to the Toronto Raptors, who clearly went into this draft with we have type we want. We want really hard playing defensive dudes. Colin Murray Boyles and Elijah Martin were the 2 draft picks. They then kind of went even further with their undrafted guys with let's get some guys who are going to play really hard and defend as well. With that is they went with Chucky Hepburn and Cliff O'Morey. Here's my thing with Colin Murray Boyles. Love the player. Absolutely hate this fit. It's just that you have way too many guys that are play the same spots in Toronto now. They're talking already about maybe he becomes a small ball 5 is how they use him behind Jakob Poeltl. Okay, that's his entry point. Not the worst thing in the world. Jonathan Mobo had some success at that last year, and Murray Boyles is a better player than Jonathan Mobo.
Agreed.
If Colin Murray Boyles doesn't shoot it, it's going to be just hard for him to be anything more than a super good defensive energy guy we all like, probably off the bench. Can pass a little, can do some when he gets the ball in his hands as far as getting himself to his shots around the rim, but does not only like he just doesn't shoot. Like he's not, doesn't want to take a jump shot at all. And then Elijah Martin, that's like let's get another guard in this group, Jamal Shed and him. Like, good luck, Emmanuel Quickly. He's going to want to fight those guys at the end of practices because they're going to be all over him defensively, which is great for, your team building. But yeah, a little bit of a weird spot for the Raptors with Murray Boyles more so.
Yeah, I mean, Raptors fans yell at me because I always kind of question the roster construction of this team, even though I like individual players. And it continues with Colin Murray Boyles. I think Colin Murray Boyles is a really interesting player, one of the best defensive players in the class. He's shorter for the position, but he has a good wingspan. And then he plays physical with his chest, and he plays good with verticality, a defensive disruptor, all of those things. So he's going to be a very good defender for the Raptors. You hit the nail on the head. What is the offense, especially if he doesn't shoot? Can he just be awesome in short rolls? Can he play out of the dunker? But can your 4-man do that with your 5-man? What it ends up being the offensive role. And that's why at one point I had him pretty high. I still ended up with him in the lottery, no question. It just was I started to question the offense just a little bit with CMB. It's just, I think he can pass, but is it good enough? I think he, what is the scoring? He has good touch. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Elijah Martin, 3-and-D off-ball guard. Can he just come in and guard? Can he knock down shots for you? Like you mentioned, Chucky Hepburn. Go run the G League program for us, right? Go be a really good guard down there for us in the G League. Clifford Amarui, just a bigger player. Tyson Degenhart out of Boise State is, just an interesting undrafted free agent, a guy that I've tracked just a little bit. So individual players, okay. I like the defense they added. I'm interested where this team goes. Obviously, Masai is out now, so I wonder if the path changes a little bit different for them, or I just think there's a consolidation trade coming somewhere with this team because I don't love how all of the things fit together right now.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but they're trying to push forward. We'll see, where it comes together for them. Sorry, a little bit of a dry throat there. We all thought the guy who went next was going to go to Toronto. Like most people are like, he's on the board. Come on, my watches go into the Raptors. Clearly did not happen, but I think Phoenix hit a home run with this pick. This kid is super raw, but all of the things, when you see how much he's improved, and I saw him at the G League Showcase because he was there playing with the African Academy team, and you saw him in the Olympics get some run for South Sudan. It was like, okay, I could kind of see where this goes. You watched from there till the end of his freshman year at Duke, it was like, oh my God, this kid is leveled up, ridiculous. And everything he does right now is just on instinct because he's still really learning to play, has not been playing that long. In a lot of ways, this is the throwback African player from when we were younger, Bryce, where it's yeah, we just got to teach him how to play, but everything you want is there. And that's changed a lot because basketball has come such a long way in Africa, where guys are coming in far more developed than they did, but Malwatch still came to the game fairly late. But I mean, defensively, I think this kid's going to be a monster in the NBA. A great reach, wingspan. I think he's pretty athletic. I think he will do really good work around the rim. And then I think he can step out and shoot it a little bit. I'm a little worried that like he's going to have to play with good point guards and good distributors to set him up, because I don't think he's ever going to be like we talked about Derek Queen. You can run offense through Danny Wolf. You can run offense through. I don't know that we ever get there with Malwatch, but that's okay. Not every big has to be a primary initiator, but you can have him with plays where he's set up. He's going to make shots around the rim, and he's going to make jumpers eventually.
Yeah, I like this. I'm fine with where they took him right here. I wasn't as much of a like Common Malawatch as a top 5 guy, but at 10, that's fine. Like we could talk, we're not going to here, but in general, there can be a conversation around the process of like trading for Mark Williams and then also drafting Common Malawatch and like all of that. But at the end of the day, we can't scream about the Suns not having a center and then also scream because they went out and got 2 of them. And apparently they have an archetype because those guys are similar in regards to what they provide, especially offensively. Now, I think Common may come in and be better defensively than Mark Williams, like right away.
Yeah.
So that I'm fine with this for Phoenix. I like this pick in general.
I think with the Mark Williams of it all too, I think it might have been a situation where that deal was in place.
Sure.
And then Malwatch fell to them and they just didn't want to go back on it. And honestly, it's fine. As long as they're okay with being a second apron team and super expensive, fine. Right. I don't really care. Like if you're okay with that, load up a little bit. It's going to be really hard for them to kind of get out of that mess and get into a better place. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch it play out. And now, my issue with the Williams acquisition is he needs signed. That's a little weird, but anyway. Second round though, man, did they do some work, right? Moved all over the board in the second round. Went up to get Rasheer Fleming at the top of the second round. We had heard teams were really trying to get to that pick that Minnesota had, that first pick to get Fleming, who fell out of the first round. Love that because they don't have anything like him on the roster. So I think that is a really outstanding pick. And then getting Kobe Brea, I said on Twitter, probably the best pure shooter in the class.
Yep.
Elite shooter, but he's now the 857th shooting guard on the roster. So good luck figuring all that out. But value-wise, fantastic pick there. But again, another kid. This team doesn't have a single real point guard. You got to get a real point guard in there to set up guys like Malwatch, set up Kobe Brea, because they're not doing it themselves. But Rasheer Fleming, top of the second round, that's almost like getting a bonus first rounder on a cheaper contract. Like I loved that for Phoenix.
I think it's great value. The one thing I will say is I think the net was like 4 second round picks to get to Rasheer Fleming. So you almost paid a first round price because last year we saw OKC pay 5 first rounders to get to Dylan Jones in the first round. Guys, like people who follow me at all know that I love Rasheer Fleming. And this is another guy that I do have a video breakdown over on the Substack. If you want to check it out, Drake Powell is another one. There's a few guys we've talked about. I won't keep bringing it up. You can go see.
No, keep bringing it up because that's good because it helps us save a little time too because we're coming up against it here.
We got 14. I have 14 of them over there, but I love Fleming. He shot the ball well, super athletic wing. I think he's a wingspan. He's a forward for me. Like I think he can come in and play the 4 in the NBA, and I think that's something Phoenix could use. You mentioned Kobe Brea can really shoot it. I said earlier, probably the best floor spacer in the draft. And then real quick, I do want to mention Mike Muscari here. Played at Drake, big time shooter as well. Don't know that he can do anything else. But also to give a shout out to our guy, Bennett Sturts, who is at Iowa next year. And when you mentioned 2026 draft, that's a name that people should probably take note of.
Yeah, I think Gavoni and Wu, like machines. We're like 12 hours after the draft finishes and they have a 2026 mock draft up already. But I think they had him like 6th or 8th in that behind a ridiculous group of freshmen that are coming, like a really talented group of freshmen. So yeah, I mean, Bennett Sturt's going to be a fun player, definitely to watch here. All right, moving forward. with this. It seems like we're still got a lot to go, and we kind of do, but because Brooklyn made 100 picks,
So it's a lot of names. As I look at my little Google sheet, like we've got through a lot of names already.
Yeah, already, yes. All right, Portland traded out of 11 to Memphis. We're gonna get to Portland, trust me. Memphis goes up to get Cedric Coward. I'm a little bit lower on it, only because we don't really have much of a book on Cedric Coward.
Sure.
Like 6 games of high level, like really high level basketball, and there were 6 awesome games. But I will say this: he was started the draft process as maybe in the second round. Then it was like definitely in the second round, definitely in the high second, definitely late first round. And by the end, like going at 11 did not stun me. Like it was like, okay, kind of everything you would want if it all pops in a 3-and-D wing who can maybe do a little bit more in the ball in his hands. One place that I will say they did pretty good with getting a kid who was a little underrated out of Washington State last year with Jalen Wells. So interesting pickup with Cedric Coward.
Yeah, this is one where I think some people like love it here, and some people are like, hey, have the same concerns. I talked to a scout that had the very same concerns that you just brought up in terms of how much high-level basketball have we seen to evaluate him on, and what did those numbers look like. But, I mean, just like the frame, the wingspan, this is a kid I've actually seen in person, not at Washington State, but when he's at Eastern Washington, and, like, you knew the wingspan was going to be ridiculous when you saw him in person. Real shooter, like, what does he do in terms of defense and all of that? And then in the second round, Javon Small, again, repetitive here, go run our G League program, right?
Like, and they value that in Memphis big time.
Yeah. Yes. And so like take the Scottie Pippen Jr. trajectory, maybe in a few years, you end up, taking over that role if he maxes out and ends up somewhere else. And then talk about defense, Jemai Meshack out of Tennessee.
You just have to call him Sam's guy.
Sam, oh my gosh. Sam just like raved about Jemai Meshack. But he will readily admit, can't offense right now, but one of the better probably the best perimeter defender in this draft. And he thinks he'll get into the NBA and be a big time defender right there. But you got to figure out the offense. But again, if Javon Small and Jemai Meshack are your G League guards next year, then you can kind of really evaluate everybody else on your team with that. So those are fine second round picks for me.
Yeah. Very few teams value the G League more than Memphis and Miami. They're 2 teams that do a ton of work through the G League and value having guys who really can play, sometimes even older guys going down there just because we want to have them there. All right. I want to say this too. The Coward pick, as far as fit, really fills a real need. Jalen Wells is a nice wing, but still you need more wings in Memphis. And they might put a really pretty nasty defensive group together with Jackson, Coward, and Wells kind of covering a little bit for John Morant, but that you might be able to then let John Morant freelance a little, which where I think he can be an impactful defender. And then eventually when he's healthy, just Zach Edey stay near the hoop, right? And clean up if somebody somehow breaks through.
And KCP, right? Like even though KCP had a down offensive season, he did, in that trade for Bane, that's a good defender as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call out there. All right. We'll come back to Portland in a little bit, but so we're going to go to the Bulls. Noah Senge goes to the Bulls. This is just another of I don't really understand Chicago at all with like their approach to too much of this stuff, because Modest Buzelis project kind of kid needed some work, but I think had a pretty good rookie year. I think Senge project kind of kid, but then the rest of the roster is built, hey, let's get veterans and try to make a playoff push. Like, it's fine if you're like an assured playoff team and it's like, hey, we don't have a lot of minutes, so let's pick an upside kid to develop at the end of the bench, like OKC, for example. Okay, sure, whatever. It's just I like Noah Senge. Maybe him and Buzelis become your, switchable forward combination moving forward for years to come, and it all works out. It's just a little weird to me.
Yeah, I was actually a little lower on Senge than others. Like Senge was the most popular like draft Twitter top 5 surprise or whatever in the way that Tinjan Salon was last year. I know Salon ended up 6. I think he's a project forward, has real tools, all of that. I just think he's a couple years away. Maybe that's okay. I wonder how he fills out his frame. I know some people like think he may end up playing some center. I don't know. I think the one thing I like about this, Keith, is Chicago wants to play with pace, right? They want to get up and run and get out in transition. That is something that Noah Essengay can do.
I'll say one other thing, because it became a thing right before the draft. People were like, you left his team in the middle of the German championship. NBA teams don't care. They, you know what? Good. Like, no chance he'd get hurt. Like, get him over here. Like, that's the NBA snob in me, but it's also the way NBA teams operate, right? They don't really care about anything else that's going. It's what's best for us. And honestly, that's how they should be, right? They should want that. So, all right, moving to who's next?
Is it the Thunder, I think?
Yeah, we are with the Thunder because we already talked the next two. So Thomas Sorber for the Thunder. I'm sorry, we skipped Lachlan Olbrich for Chicago, second round pick. Fine, right? Just they could use a little bit more size on the back end of the roster. He'll be in the G League. It's fine. Like I don't have any real issue with that. Let's see what it looks like. He's a nice player. I know Sam likes him. Had seen him quite a bit in Australia. So no real issue with that pick there. And I have not seen their undrafted. Oh, Caleb Grill,
yeah, out of Missouri, shooter, had a path through college basketball with him. I'll say with Lachie Olbrich, he played at UC Riverside as a freshman. I think he was the freshman of the year in that conference. Skilled kid in terms of like passing, being able to grab and go, stuff like that, but can't shoot and lacks a little bit of athleticism. But like, as you mentioned, at 55, like that's a fine swing on a player like that.
Yeah. And that's the pick they traded with the Lakers and moved around. So, all right, the Thunder. They kept one first-round pick. The Thunder have no roster spots. It's a real challenge for them. They have 13 players under contract. They have 2 free agents who are AJ Mitchell and the big Jalen Williams, Jay Will, who they love both of those guys too. So drafting 2 kids in the first round was going to be really hard for them. They've got stuff to figure out on the back end of the roster. That said, Thomas Sorber. Love this pick because as you get more expensive down the line, you're not going to be able to keep everybody. And now you have your Isaiah Hartenstein replacement positionally. They're nowhere near the same player, but positionally, you would now have another center in the mix that will probably spend the next 2 years working, developing. They'll figure it out. I think this was a really good pick. I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about him. And I know some of the coaching staff at Georgetown. I think I've probably said this before, but Ed Cooley was one of my high school teachers back in the day. So like I was tipped off like, hey, you better check this kid out. He's pretty good. And I was like, all right, yeah, he can really, really play and do some stuff. Season got messed up a little bit with an injury late. So his pre-draft process was a little messy, but for Oklahoma City, this is a outstanding pickup for them. They get 15. They traded 24. We'll talk about the player there, but traded 24 to get a pick from the Kings. It's a future Spurs pick. It's top 16 protected. I think the Spurs will be a playoff team by 2027. So it'll probably convey as a first because, of course, it will. It's the Thunder. But they kicked the can down the road with that pick. And then in the second round, they did use their second rounder on Brooks Barnhizer. I know Sam was super high on him. G League guy, I think they already said he's going to be on a 2-way contract. Makes sense. They don't have roster spots. So, good kind of player to throw in the G League. Could do some stuff. Is a little bit of on-ball juice. Pretty good shooter. Feels like good guy to have in the G League program.
Yeah, I like Sorber in terms of like just a defensive-minded big. And so like he makes sense, a crazy wingspan, has to figure out what the elite offensive skill is. Like I don't think he's your true big in terms of like lob threat with crazy athleticism and all of that, but I do think he can pass. He has some skill level. So I'm just interested to see how that plays out for him. He's going to be impactful on the offensive boards. And again, like with a lot of these bigs, we always say these things, but maybe he ends up like being able to space the floor a little bit. He had some face-off stuff in the games that, like, if you watch some of his better games, had great rebounding and stock numbers. It just, when you're OKC, it's like, whoever they draft is always going to be like the fourth on the depth chart because of the depth they have right now. But
you just trust they're going to be good.
Yeah.
Eventually.
And so, like, to me, this is just like, hey, probably one of the best players available on the board. Add to the big man room because, what happens with Jay Will? Hartenstein probably only has one more year. So, like, just continue to replenish that. You mentioned Barnhizer. I will quickly mention Peyton Sanford as an undrafted free agent. A kid I think that can really, really shoot it. He had double shoulder surgery this offseason. He played through all of that at Iowa last year. He's going to start in the G League, and it's going to take him some time to, like, get through that and all of that. He won't be at Summer League would be my guess. But I think just adding a floor spacing wing like that is, down the road. Maybe this is something that pays off in 2 years where all of a sudden you're bringing in this wing that's knocking down threes whenever they need from some floor spacing. So.
Yeah, a little over a year ago when he was finishing up his I'll say junior year. I don't know if it was his senior year, but whatever. It's a year ago at Iowa, there was a little bit of maybe he could sneak into the back end of the first round buzz on him. And yeah, you're right. I don't want to say he got hurt by going back to say, but he did, but he got hurt too. So, like, yeah, just a challenge. And that Iowa team was not what they have been in years past, to put it simply that way. All right, we are now to the biggest shocker in the draft. Blew us away on our live show. I don't know anybody who wasn't like, what the heck? Here, Yang Hansen goes to the Trailblazers after they trade back. He, a month ago, was like barely in some top 100s. Then, like 2-3 weeks later, it was like, okay, this kid is going to be a second rounder. Like a week ago, it was like, he's going to be a high second rounder. And it was about 2 days before the draft, I started hearing people say, they might need to get this guy in the first round if you want him. He's probably not falling into the second round. To go 16 was crazy. How it was crazy was Clutch Sports had to get him there in the building because he wasn't invited to the green room. That's how you know if you weren't even in the green room and you went in the middle of the draft, that's a shocker. The fit is weird to me. I don't care about Ayton and Williams being there. They're not going to be there long term. You just drafted Donovan Clingan a year ago. I don't like, all accounts are Clingan's the guy. They love him and he's going to be the starting center. I don't know that they can ever play together. I don't think you can do that. Maybe now you look at it as, hey, we have an offense-defense combo between these two guys. We've got 48 minutes and we'll figure it all out and let them battle it out and they'll make each other better every day. I will also say this. I've said it before. You have to be really careful with, if you just look at stats from the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, there have been NBA guys who washed out of the NBA, gone over there and put up 2010. No issue with that. Their lineup rules are very weird on how often non-Chinese players can play, how many minutes, how many of you can have on the floor. There's just weird stuff with a lot of that. I don't think the kid's bad by any means. Just was a shocking pick at 16.
I don't know that this is like, I'm not trying to like flex here. Trust me, I'm not trying to. I actually took him in the first round in Sam and I's very first 2025 mock, before we knew, right? Before the 2025, 24, 25 college basketball season. So I was really interested. I evaluated him last cycle and really liked the idea of him. And then, but it was just like, then we saw him play against NBA exhibition games and he couldn't move defensively. Like he didn't hold up defensively.
That's what I'm worried about. And
so I actually moved him down my board after seeing him play. And I think it may have been against the Blazers. Actually, I know one of the teams played against the Blazers. It may have been Ulm, I think maybe played against the Blazers. Maybe.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe Hanson's team didn't, but anyway, the passing is the thing here, right? Like if you're taking him at 16 and this works out, it's because of the offense. Listen, I will tell you this. When I hear Chinese Jokic, I am terrified because Jokic is a comp that I don't want to hear because
you can't set that bar for anybody.
And it's ridiculous. Like Draymond is the other one. When I hear people have to use Draymond as the comp, that actually worries me, Keith, because the the court mapping, the processing, like everything that goes right. And this isn't taking away from those guys. For them to be the impact they are is just very hard to repeat. So I think Hansen is going to be like a backup big in the NBA. Like I think maybe a third big, maybe a second big, but it's just kind of weird process investing back-to-back first-round picks this high on centers who, like, Klingen has a little bit of limitations offensively, it looks like right now. Hansen has limitations defensively for sure. I know he's defensive player in the year. I don't care. I've watched the film. There are some concerns there. He can't do anything other than play deep drop coverage in ball screen. Maybe they're going to have some really creative zone where they play those two guys on the blocks and they play the 3-2.
Really creative.
Yeah, 3-2 that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But definitely a surprise. I thought it was a bit of a reach. It not an indictment of the player. I think I had him in my like 30s, but that was like in my second round tier. Like he was at the top of my very strongly second round prospects.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna trust in Mike Schmitz, who I'm sure probably saw this kid play when he was 12.
Sure.
I mean, he's been at every international thing ever. I think he's actually has like there's 7 versions of Mike Schmitz and Gavoni, for what it's worth, with the Draft Express guys, where they have these clones that they can send out because now they're at every event. I don't even know, but yeah, but we'll see where that goes. They're undrafted guys, kind of interesting group, right? They're bringing in Caleb Love, Sean Padula, and Andrew Carr. I kind of like Sean Padula. He's point guard size, but can really shoot. Much more of a scorer. Caleb Love, right? Caleb Love, what a weird run it's been for. It feels like his draft stock dropped every year longer he stayed in college, because it felt like for a little while it was like, oh, first round pick for sure, lottery guy. Then it was like, all right, maybe the back half, maybe the second, now all the way down to undrafted. So we'll see. But they're another team that's starting to use the remix more and more. For trying to develop, and maybe they throw together an interesting team. Like I said, I like Sean Padula quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah. I think he's gonna score a bunch of points in the G League for that team.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we are moving here. We're going to
the Wolves with Jan Beringer.
Yeah, Jan Beringer. I don't want to be insulting, so it's one of those for sure. With that, but yeah, I mean, really interesting pick, considering the news that just came out that Naz Reid gets a 5-year, $125 million deal. But I think Beringer is a nice developmental guy to have behind Gobert, behind Reid. I think Julius Randle's going to be back in the mix there in Minnesota too. So just kind of throw him in the mix. You'll get him some minutes where you can. Probably not going to play a lot right away. But I think an interesting player. I saw Kevin Pelton's model really rated him highly defensively.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff to like there for sure, where I think he's got not so much super duper athleticism, but more just good timing and understanding, reads the floor really well on the defensive side. So I'm fine with this pick as an upside pick for Minnesota. Just as a guy to throw in the mix behind a pretty good big group already.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing with them is they went this route with both picks. Even their second round pick in Rocco Zikarsky is a very raw but like massive human being at the center position that's been playing.
That dude will throw guys around.
Yes.
Like he's going to get to learn from Gobert in a way that will really, I think, help him as far as like, he guys are going to feel it when they go against him.
So they had a type in this draft because they went with it twice. I think Beringer is going to be a little bit more ready. Like I think he could play 10 minutes off the bench this next year in Minnesota and just be super athletic, play finisher offensively. I think defensively there's real upside. He has that movement ability to maybe be able to do things a little bit more than just play true drop. But that is the idea here. A rim finishing, rim protecting big. And really that's the same idea with Zikarsky. Zikarsky is just a couple years away more. And so you're not going to be trying to develop them within. I would not be surprised if Zikarsky stays, doesn't end up over here. So
yeah, he might be one where it's actually better for him to stay in Australia or somewhere and just play a ton. With that. Beringer, last quick question on him. Do you have handy what he measured?
I do. I have it updated. So let me get 7 foot. So, um, and then 7'4.5" wingspan, 9'3" standing reach.
Yeah, because his measurements were all over the place.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
for a
yeah.
little while, some places had him at like 6'9".
Yeah.
In that, and then I other people were like, no, he's like legit 7 foot. So
That's with
so
shoes. Again, I always just
sure,
add like an
yeah,
inch. So like the actual measurement maybe 6'10 3/4"
sure,
or something like that. But
okay,
7 foot, 7'4.5" wingspan, 9'3" standing reach is what I
perfect.
have.
All right, one of my most favorite picks in the draft. It's the Heat.
Yep.
Get Kasparis Yakushonis. I thought he was going to go in the lottery for sure. Um, I get some people saw it Illinois. I think people were like, what does this kid do? Like, there's a lot of turnovers. I feel like his turnovers were more, he was trying things than just like getting the ball picked from him or, couldn't make passes and couldn't make reads. I like his offensive game as far as the way he does a good job of varying getting his own, varying getting other guys involved. I really like Kasparis Yakushonis a lot. I think that he hit a home run here with a pick. It really fills a need for them too, because they don't. Davion Mitchell's a nice player, but I think he is like bring him into games off the bench and let him change the energy, get him run around, defend, and all that. I really like Yakushonis quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess based on value of where I had him on my board, this is probably the best of the draft, especially in the first round. I think he can do a little bit on and off the ball. The turnovers are a question, right? Like, I understand that for people. He was 35% on catch and shoot threes last year, Keith. So, like, that's where I think he can play a little bit off the ball. And it doesn't have to be just as a primary initiator. Like, that was always my pitch
Yep.
whenever drafting Kasparis much higher than this is. It's not a guy that only has to be an on the ball player, especially with his size at 6'6" and the 6'8" wingspan. The dribble jumper has to be better with the turnovers. And I will say this, some of the defensive stuff was concerning. Like when I watched him last year in the FIBA stuff, I was a little more intrigued and then got into the season, didn't love it as much. So it will be interesting to see where he's at on that end, but maybe Miami brings out the best of that end of the floor for Kasparis.
And I think you're going to have just a lineup construction issue because I don't think he's going to defend small,
Sure.
quick point guards.
Correct.
Like I don't know if they played Jeremiah Fears and the Pelicans in summer league or not. I don't have the summer leagues.
He
Like
would struggle
Jeremiah
there.
Fears would like burn him off the dribble, and you'd be
Sure.
like, oh god, with this. So yeah, he's probably going to defend more twos and threes. But I kind of like him on bigger players because I think he moves his feet well enough to stay in front of guys that way, and then can use his size a little bit more against those guys.
Playing with Davion Mitchell in that way then makes a ton of sense,
Sure.
right? Like off the bench, those two guys together. And then this is like a fascinating undrafted free agent. I love Vlad Golden as an undrafted free agent. I think Vlad Golden is going to be a third big in this league. And I say that positively. I think the third center is an important role for NBA teams. But then they also went Umar Ballo and Dane Danger, two other bigger players. And then Steve Settle is like a 4-man that like has the potential to shoot with size as probably like more of a forward. But Vlad Golden is the name that stands out there for me with the Miami Heat. I wouldn't have, he's a name I brought up to Trevor for the Lakers whenever they still had the 55th pick in terms of maybe adding him as a third big for the Lakers. So
yeah, he would have been a really interesting guy there. And I'm with you on Settle. He had gotten some buzz as maybe a late second rounder simply because he has the profile of someone who will shoot it, and he's got really good size for a shooter. So we'll see. I mean, it never been against the Heat developing guys through the G League, right?
I was G League as well.
Developing anyway, but
I was gonna say Khalil
League,
Ware was a great rookie season, but yes, both tracks.
All right, so next Atlanta Hawks trade back, great value to get a pick. That pick they got, we already talked about that on the Pelican side. It's just reverse it for the Hawks. Wonderful value there, but then nailed the pick.
Yeah.
He's a Newell. Getting him this late, I think, is really good for fit reasons. They now have a Kongwu, Porzingis. They really love Muhammad Gay there in Atlanta, and they really like Dominic Barlow too. But for me, Newell is like the ideal third big with Porzingis and a Kongwu. This kid is he plays with really great energy. He defends. again, a guy who understands, all right, I got to play off people, and knew that because at Montverde, he was like the fourth, fifth, sixth option at times.
Yeah.
Kevin Boyle talked about it right before the draft on ESPN. He's like, we had 6 starters on that team, and they rotated all 6 guys through, which is also a cool little factoid for like these 4 guys who got drafted in the first round. They all took turns coming off the bench at times, including Cooper Flagg. Like, because it would now, I think they looked at the schedule and like, all right, we're playing another powerhouse. Let's make sure we're not messing around with Cooper off the bench here. But they are in a spot with Aizen Newell where I think he fits really well with Porzingis and Okongwu, where he's just going to, they're just going to say, play with a bunch of energy and play defense. That's all we need you to do early. And the shot may come around. We'll see. That's going to be he really pops and becomes the guy who there's shades of in his game for me is Jaden McDaniels. Where a big, lengthy forward who can do a lot of stuff defensively, but McDaniels really came along very rapidly as a shooter. For Newell to get to those levels, he's going to have to do the same. But I like this pick a lot for the Hawks.
No, I like it as well. I think it's a really nice fit there in terms of playing with those bigs, or like even if they want to play him as almost the third big, like he could play a little like some center as well. Like I'm very high on this Atlanta Hawks team right now. Like if they get a really good wing and some backcourt help to like round out the roster, I'm really, and stay healthy, obviously, with Porzingis. I think what you're going to see Newell do really well early in his career offensively is cut and offensive rebound. Like that's going to be his role. Like play off of everybody else, cut at the right time, offensive rebound. And then you mentioned the defense where he has a chance to be really impactful on that end of the court.
And some pretty good passers in Atlanta with Trae Young.
Jalen Johnson.
Daniels is really improving as a playmaker. And then Jalen Johnson's a good passing forward. I think people kind of forgot because he missed so much time. So yeah, I'm pretty excited there. All right. Sacramento takes Nick Clifford. That's the trade up into the round. I think the value they gave up was fine. It's a pick that who knows what it'll be. It's not going to be probably any better than this. And I'm a big fan of Nick Clifford. He's a kind of do everything wing. In Sacramento has a lot of like one skill guys on their roster. So I think having Clifford just gives them a little bit more versatility where they can do a lot of different things with him. You play him at the 2, you play him at the 3. You could probably get away with playing him at the 1 occasionally in some, lineup constructions with other ball handlers on the roster. So I really like this pick for the Kings there. And then I think getting Maxime Reynaud in the late in the middle of the second round, another solid pick. Like I think they came away with 2 older players, but 2 guys who are going to be pretty good for them for where they were drafted.
I mean, these next 2 ones we're going to talk about are 2 of my favorite drafts in terms of like late first round and then into the second round, like combo picks in that regard. I love Nick Clifford. You hit it perfectly, just versatile. He played a lot of point guard at Colorado State. I tell people all the time, if you want to see true eye manipulation where he's moving defenders with his reads, Nick Clifford does a great job of that. I don't think he plays point guard, primary initiator in the NBA, but there could be some of it, to your point. But I also think what sold me on Neek as a prospect was I think he understands playing off the ball as well, cutting, relocating. I buy the catch and shoot ability from Clifford, and then I think he'll be a good defender. And then listen, Maxime Reynaud was my guy. Again, video breakdown on the Substack. I was a little frustrated when Detroit didn't take him at 37. We'll talk about that once we get to them, as we're starting to get almost finished with the first round, and then we'll get to just the second round teams. But I think this is a very skilled offensive big. I think he's going to space the floor, and I think he's better defensively. Not good, but better than what people think. I think they look at him just like, oh, he's going to be a negative. I don't buy into that. I think he understands position. I think he has good length. I think he moves okay. I think he can be neutral as a 2.5, like maybe not quite good enough to be your backup big. Maybe he's better off being your third, but he just provides something a little bit different. I actually loved mocking him to the Celtics, Keith, leading up to the draft with either one of their picks. And I like who they ended up taking, but I like Maxime Reynaud. I think this was a really good draft in general for the Kings.
Yeah, and I think with Reynaud too, offensively gives them a different look from Sabonis and Valanciunas, which is, it's just a nice change up to be able to have in kind of in your center group there. All right, Orlando Magic, Jace Richardson. This is fine, right? You traded Cole Anthony
Yep,
in the deal to
exactly.
get Desmond Bain. Jace Richardson's, there's going to be no pressure on him to play right away because it's a deep guard group in Orlando. That was part of why they moved two guards for one in the trade because they want to free up some minutes for some guys there. So I think if you're Jace Richardson, if you say kind of come in and do what Cole Anthony did, be like play with a bunch of energy, get some shots up, try to give us a little bit of a different look from what Anthony Black does as a backcourt player. I think the two of them kind of play together some in backup groups behind Bain and Suggs. I think this is a really good high upside pick. There were points in the draft process where Jace Richardson was talked about as a lottery pick.
Yeah.
And now, Orlando get him at 25. I think this is really good get for them.
Yeah, I love Jace Richardson here. This is a really good spot. I'm interested to see like the size is probably why he's available here. The very left-hand dominant, but I think he can knock down shots. I think he's going to be a good defender. And I just think that him moving into that Cole Anthony role for the Magic makes a ton of sense. And then again, I think this is a team that paired their first round pick at the end of the first and then a second round pick for them at the top of the second round. I mean, I love some of the guys that were available at the top of the second. Like 1, 2, 3 went Fleming, Noah Pinda, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and I really like Noah Pinda. Really interesting player for them that kind of plays the forward position, just adds to that room. He's got to knock down shots, but he's a good cutter, can do a little bit with the ball in his hands, can pass. I'm a little lower on his defense than others are, Keith. I think he'll be a good defender. I don't think he's a great defender, but a very physical player that's going to hold his line. If he gets his chest on you, you're not going to bump him off of that. I think he can be a real rotation forward for this team if he knocks down shots.
Yeah, I think landed in a place too where he's going to work in a really good forward group.
Yes.
And they're going to figure things out there. That's going to be good for him. Might be 2-3 years before we really see him pop. But yeah, I like that. They paid quite a bit to get him. They gave up 4 seconds to go up to number 32 to get him. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think that was, ultimately pretty good. Here's where we start making up ground because we already talked some of these picks later in the round. So we got 2 more first rounders. Hugo Gonzalez to Boston.
Yep.
People killed me because, right, Celtics guy. And I was like, I don't know. Like, and here's why I was like, I don't know. They were coming off back-to-back titles and keeping the team together. Great. Take the upside pick and let's see where it goes. Now you're resetting and you kind of need guys to maybe play a little bit more. I don't know. Just here's the thing. Because they also came for me from Spain, right? Because they're like, hey, you're not going to talk bad about our guy here. There's just not he didn't play a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it. Now, what I do like is he's been playing against grown men since the time he was like 14, 15 years old. So that part I do like. I do like that he's, a little more ready to go. I know the youth level stuff really pops. People really like it. For me, he's got to shoot better, has to shoot better. Otherwise, all right, if he's a run, dunk, defend forward, okay, fine. Boston has, Lord knows they got plenty of shooting. And they've got enough guys who can do stuff with the ball in their hands. So if he's just playing with a ton of energy and running around and then the rest comes when it comes, fine. I don't have any real issue with that. I just thought there were a couple guys on the board that could have filled an immediate need for a team that by all accounts is still trying to be really good. So, I don't mind it though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you with all that. That all makes sense. I will say just like value-wise, I think it's perfectly reasonable with them taking him here. Like this is definitely his range and his range for me. I'm with you in terms of the film. Like this was one guy where it's just like, can we get more consecutive minutes in a game for me to evaluate?
Yes.
Measured really well, 6'7", 6'11" wingspan, potential
biggest
two-way
hands
wing.
Of almost any player. I think they said like in years or something like that.
So emphasis on potential with him though. And again, it's amazing how much this comes up. He's an advantage exploiter offensively if he can shoot. I think he has the handle and those type of things. The defense, like I think has to be refined. I think he plays hard, but he just like has to do things a certain way, like a little bit better, but interesting potential two-way wing for the Celtics. Again, I like the value here. I understand you're like, obviously I'm not going to be like, oh no, like they should have went after this 100%. You have a better like beat on what the Celtics, like your feel on what they could have used here and who was on the board. But just in a vacuum, I don't mind this pick in terms of just he was right in this range on my board.
Yeah, I'll pull this question. They are not stashing him. He's coming over. They already said that. He'll come over. Yeah, there is a world where, yes, they could have stashed him for another year, save some money against the tax and the aprons, but by all accounts, he'll be over here this year. All I'm going to say is patience, 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 because he's very, very young. But I do think there's a world where on this Celtics team, they don't need him to do a whole lot right away, especially with the ball. It's going to be his path to minutes will be play really hard, run the floor, cut, and defend. And I think he will do all of those things. Just the make or break skill is, will he shoot it or not? As a forward, we'll see. Second round, they went with Amari Williams out of Kentucky, big man. The number one thing that everybody called out, and then the Celtics themselves called out, is his passing ability. They loved, his playmaking from that spot. They think he'll be a defender as well. Eventually, with time, my question is the passing is great, but only if he is at least somewhat of a threat to score. I don't know. We'll see what that looks like. And then Max Shulga was their second round pick. Both of those picks came in the trade back with Orlando. He's like just outstanding shooter. Guy will come in and just can really shoot. I think Sam, I forget how Sam put it, but Sam's like, he just plays with like a swagger a little bit there. I think he's another guy who kind of understands to pass and move and all those things. He had gotten some much higher second round buzz leading up to the draft. So both those guys are going to be on two-way contracts. The Celtics already came out and said that. So, right, throw them in Maine and let's see. Let's figure it out. With those two guys, that'll be all right. Boston has done some good stuff with the guys through Maine in the past that they, Kada, Sam. Well, Kada wasn't really in Maine a lot, but like younger players who are there, but they're okay with using the G League.
Yeah, Amari Williams, interesting big. I love the passing. I'm a little less on like what else he does. He's very left-hand dominant, like trying to score. Shulga, you hit it, can shoot it. I'm all in on the offense. If he figures out the defense, maybe a guy that ends up playing. And then I'll just quickly mention Aaron Scott as an undrafted free agent. He was a guy out of North Texas 2 years ago, transferred to St. John's. Again, one of these bigger kind of forwards that has the ability, potential to space the floor. I always value those guys and are intrigued a little bit. So nice little undrafted free agent to pick up as well.
And I think Ben Gregg from Gonzaga is kind of, let's see, I don't know what he is. I think he's probably more of a 5 just because I don't know if he holds up guarding forwards and wings. So, but fine, right? Take a shot there. All right, Bryce, we've reached the end of the first round. The LA Clippers and Yannick Conan Niederhauser, super riser throughout the draft process, right? Went to the pre-draft camps and killed it. And everybody was like, all right, this guy is really something. Clippers said they wanted a more athletic second option there. They think he can be a Clint Capella type. They did not say he'd be Clint Capella, but that's the like what they're looking at there. Sure, I think so. Like I see where they're going with that. I like that he's different from Ivica Zubac in that respect. So no real issues there. I know some Clippers fans are a little like, man, why did we go here with this guy? But I think it's a pretty good value pick. And then I really like them to trade up from one pick was odd to get Kobe Sanders. But if they thought the Knicks were going to take him, my guess is the Knicks knew the Clippers wanted him and were like, we can get a little more value, in this. But I like Kobe Sanders quite a bit. He did get kind of Nick Clifford-like, right? Sure. Like just a big wing who can do a lot of different stuff with the ball in his hand. So I think he'll be in the G League. But Niederhauser, nice players to back. I think they still need one more proven backup, just to have an option, like a 4-5 option there. But I think the Clippers did okay.
Yeah, Niederhauser, another guy I have a video breakdown on the Substack for. Great size, great movement, tested well, all of that stuff. I will say I'm a little concerned that not all of that shows up on the film. And so like he's going to have to figure those things out. Zubac will be awesome for teaching him the nuances of how to use his length and hand activity and how that can be valuable. I also with bigs am sometimes concerned about hands. And in that video breakdown, I show 4 different possessions just in that one game where he bubbles a ball and it ends up with him not scoring. But like great size, rim protection potential, rim runner, lob threat, all of that. And they needed to add something like that. And then spot on with Kobe Sanders in terms of a guy that played like on the ball some in college, but is going to be an off ball wing in the NBA. And like, I never am going to question adding wings in the second round, right? Especially ones that have shown some skill where they can attack second sides off the dribble, make passing reads. So knock down shots, be more impactful defensively. I'm never going to hate that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then undrafted guys, John Poulikitis, interesting player, one of the better shooters in the class.
Yep.
And also showed as a senior some more on-ball stuff where he could at least create his own shot a little bit more. So interesting guy to just kind of monitor. Clippers team doesn't have a ton of like pure shooters on this roster. So I think, he becomes an interesting guy if he can show up, become somebody to keep an eye on. All right. We are through the first round, second round only teams. Detroit, first up, Chaz Lanier. I'll let you go. You cover the Pistons. So go ahead.
Yep. Again, another guy video breakdown. It's actually pinned to the top if you're interested here. Just a floor spacer, right? I mean, I hate to say people are like replacements because we're talking about a second round pick at 37, but if Tim Hardaway Jr., like he's definitely not a Malik Beasley replacement, but let's say Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't resign, whatever happens, I think just adding a off-ball guard / wing that really shoots the ball well makes sense. He does remind me of Tim Hardaway Jr. in a lot of ways. He gets a shot off very quick. He's not a 3-level scorer. He can, though, attack a closeout, 1-2 dribbles into a mid-range pull-up. The questions are going to be on the defensive end, which is why a guy that really shoots the ball the way he does ends up in the second round. But this was one that was like reported he came in for a workout. I had kind of got wind that maybe this was going to be who they were identifying a couple days before. He's there. They take him. It makes sense. I would have went Maxime Renault, but I'm a Maxime Renault guy. Chaz Lanier, adding floor spacing, hard to argue.
Yeah, it's, good pickup in the second round. I think, just another nice guard to have in the mix and, get out there. And they did not need, but they're going to focus on guys who can play a little bit off of Cade Cunningham.
Sure.
Right. Like that's going to be a thing for them. And he may be able to do that. They double dipped in the undrafted ranks was the guy Ziegler. A little bit of a weird situation because he was trying to get back to college like a week ago.
Yep.
And that got denied. And apparently they're not going to fight it. And he's going to move on as far as my understanding is here. So we'll see, what it looks like. I mean, they'll probably play together quite a bit for the Motor City team in the G League.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. I think, correct me if I'm
Pacers.
wrong. Pacers next. I love this pick for them. Cam Jones. He was a first rounder on my board, late first round. What I liked with Cam Jones was his first 3 years at Marquette, 3-and-D guard, like 3-and-D wing. Really, that's what he was going to be. This past year, Marquette said, we need you to be an on-ball guy. We need you to run the show here. He did it and did it really, really well. For a guy who that's not really his skill. His efficiency took a pretty big dip. But I think you get him back with a team like Indiana, where he's going to be back in the 3-and-D role. I think he fits really, really well with them.
Yeah, I think this is a fit play, right? Like you mentioned it there where, especially their style, even if he's the smallest guy on the floor, the point guard, he doesn't always have to dribble the ball up and be the primary initiator. And so like playing with that pace, one thing I always love to bring up with Cam Jones is like one of the best perimeter defensive communicators I've scouted. Like he's really good with that. I know you love guards that rebound.
Yep.
So Cam Jones, really interesting. And then one of the surprise picks of the draft also come from the Pacers in Taylen Peter, which is a guy that didn't start on his college team, but can really, really shoot it.
Yeah, so when I was looking at guys who might be in the NCAA tournament, and I'm like, all right, who do I not know? And I just pull up the roster and the stat sheet. This dude's like stats are like, wait, what the heck?
Yeah.
He shot last year 58% from the floor, 45% from three on 5 3-pointers per game.
Yeah.
That matches his 3-point production. I mean, it was up, but matches it pretty good. But then the overall, it's like, I want to say it was 72% on 2-pointers. I have no idea what happens here with this guy, but like, hey, why not? Right? If in a league that values shooting more than ever they have, like, holy crap, like it popped, but he wasn't nowhere near my board. And I don't think Sam didn't have him, right?
Nope.
Because if I remember it, like Sam was like, Bryce, you got to take the show for a minute because I have to go write something
Right.
because they
Yep.
didn't have a write up ready. Yeah, this was, if the Young Han Sen pick was surprising where he went in the first round, this is like 1,000 times more surprising because I don't know anybody other than Indiana who had this guy as a draftable guy. They're going to throw him in the G League and figure it out from there. And hey, if he can make it because the shooting is real, let's go. Right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, we'll see. Again, like sometimes it's like when you take these flyers in the second round, it kind of is what it is. Undrafted guys for them, Samson Johnson, we talked about that Connecticut
like
team,
him.
just like, yeah, super athletic, big. Like, again, talk about fit. This is like if Isaiah Jackson doesn't make it back from his injury or, whatever, like, maybe he ends up being the third big on a team that when you play with this pace and all of that, yeah, interesting. I was always a little bit intrigued with Samson Johnson just because like you could see the pop off the floor with him in ball screen situations, offensive rebounding, stuff like that.
Then I like Steve Ashworth. They're
Yeah,
basically goes, hey, go watch TJ McConnell and try to be him in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that's exactly what he is, with that. All right. The Milwaukee Bucks.
Hold on, real quick, Keith. We're gonna get yelled at. We actually skipped the Lakers at 36. We should.
Oh my gosh, we did. It's because of the way I'm laid out by original pick. Oh my gosh, yeah, we did skip the Lakers. I know that now I'm gonna get accused of that being intentional.
I know.
I promise it wasn't.
I know.
Yeah, Adu Tiro, like, yeah, why not, right? Like, when you're building your roster around Luka Doncic and LeBron James in the immediate, and then Luka long term, you want guys who are athletic and can defend because that's their key to getting on the floor. And if the shot comes, Tiro becomes even more than that, right? Like that's going to be the absolute make or break shot or make or break for him as a rotation guy in the NBA is if he shoots.
Yep. No, 100 big time athlete. Again, this is a guy I have video breakdown. I know, I think Trevor helped me get it out to Lakers fans the same way you helped me with Hugo Gonzalez get that video breakdown out to Celtics fans. I appreciate you guys very much. Big time athlete, real defensive potential. Like, this is truly, you hit it. If he shoots it, this ends up being a steal of a pick. I like Adu. I wondered a little bit with the Lakers in terms of like, I definitely want guys that are going to space the floor if it's not a center playing off of Luka. So I didn't love it because of that, but I do like it because they need the defensive impact that Adu Thiero could bring. So in that regard, I'm okay with it. And then a couple interesting undrafted forwards.
Yeah.
Eric Dixon can really shoot it and score it. Arthur Kaluma. And then there's like a plethora. There's a few other names here as well. I don't know which ones you want to attack.
I like Augustus Marshallonis quite a bit. Yes, Sarunas Marshallonis kid. He's not as good as his dad. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been an undrafted player. But I think he's going to be a player in the league. Just again, and we talked about it before, but another guy, let him run your G League team, and you're going to be probably pretty good. I'm not as big on RJ Davis. I just think he's too small to be a on-ball scoring point guard in the league, but we'll see with that. Julian Reese is an interesting player as well. And you mentioned Dixon and Kaluma. Kaluma had a couple years ago at Creighton had potential first-round buzz on him, and then didn't go great at Kansas State or Texas. But interesting player. These are all good guys to have in your G League program there with the Lakers. All right, now we're to the Milwaukee Bucks. And Bogoljub Markovic, as they're coming. I promise it's not Bogoljub. That's how it looks, but it's Bogoljub. I looked it up on the pronunciation guide. But yeah, great flyer, right? This late in the second round. I don't know that he comes over. I don't know if the Bucks even want him to come over. Super young, really good size. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Nikola Jovic, the one from the Heat. Not the world beater Nugget. But yeah, he is. I think he's got a chance to be something. I think eventually we might see him come over in a couple years, and the Bucks might have a player in him.
Yeah, skilled big, can shoot it, space the floor, all of that. Forward/big. And so he's very interesting. He played for KK Mega, which is where Nikola Topic started last season. So if you watch any Topic, you probably saw Makovic. I think one of his teammates is coming over to the States to play college hoops this year as well.
Yes.
He just got to build.
Who, but yeah.
Yeah, he's got to build out his frame and all of that. So like not a super soon. They're already trying to develop Tyler Smith, so that's fine. And then they got Mark Sears. So at the very least, you get Mark Sears to run your G League program. And then Wooga Poplar is a guy at one, like, again, last year, a guy I thought like at points in the season was a fringe, like definitely draftable type of player. Those are nice little undrafted free agent names, older players that I like taking flyers on.
Yeah, I'm with you on those ones for sure. There. All right. Cleveland is next up. Tyrese Proctor will be on the standard roster. He's going to get us one of these second round pick exception deals. And the reason why is it's not because he's like they're super duper high on him. Although I do like Tyrese Proctor as a player, and I think fills an actual need. Cavs backup point guards is a little weird.
Yeah.
I like Craig Porter Jr., but that's kind of it for actual point guards. But a lot of this deal with Tyrese Proctor is it's going to help them with the apron issues that they're running into, because he'll be on a true second round pick contract. But I think really good value getting him that late.
Yeah.
There. I think he's a pretty good player, and clearly having been at Duke with a lot of other guys who can play, understands the value of, hey, as a on-ball guard, I got to get us into our stuff, then I have to make an impact off-ball. Because it's not going to necessarily be I take 100 dribbles, run pick and roll, and we go. That's just not there. So I like this pickup. And then Saliu Niang, he's going to be a stash. He's not coming over there, but some upside, potential. We'll see, what it looks like with him. He's super athletic from what I've heard. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yep, agreed on him. Like that's a stash. Like it's going to take development and some time with him. But Proctor, I like the value, as you said as well. Had to play point guard at times at Duke. I thought he looked better when he was playing off of a primary creator, just like catch and shoot, knock down shots. The biggest thing with Proctor is going to be the frame. Like, is he going to be able to hold up? It reminds me a little bit of Trey Alexander of the Nuggets. I love Trey Alexander at Creighton, thought he was a really good player. But the more we watch the NBA, especially in the playoffs, and the Cavs are going to be a playoff team for a while here, you got to have guys that can hold up to the physicality of not just the league, but then specifically the playoffs where it gets even more physical. I think that'll be the biggest X factor for Proctor being a rotation piece for this team.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then I don't know about Chaney Johnson. We'll see.
Yeah.
If he makes it, it's going to be because he ends up really popping as a defensive player. I think we got two teams to go that didn't make picks. So we'll touch on them very quickly. Denver.
Hold on. We had two teams that did make picks. The Knicks, Mohamed Diawara.
Oh my gosh, man, I'm doing terrible with this. Thank you for keeping me on track. Yeah. Yes, the Knicks, Mohamed Diawara, upside play. Yeah. Right. Let's see what it looks like probably in the G League if he even comes over at all. He might stay overseas with that one. And then Golden State. I apologize. I completely blew it with this. Alex Tui, I like actually.
I love this fit, Keith. I love it.
And I think he's somebody who can probably on a two-way early, but might play his way off that, kind of like Guy Santos did, like Quentin Post did. Warriors have done pretty good work developing guys through the two-way process. So I think Alex Tui could be a pretty good player for them. And then Will Richard, let's see. Yeah. Right. I G League guy there.
I like Tui. Like for pick 52, this is one that I like him. I know we've been positive in general. We're going to be positive, but like this is truly one that at pick 52, I love this for Golden State. I think he's a versatile player, offensive skill set. If it's going to work for Alex Tui, a situation like Golden State makes a ton of sense. Will Richard, potential 3-and-D wing. Can he knock down shots? Is he going to be able to defend at a high enough level? But Tui there is a guy I really like.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, now we'll get to the two teams, and we're flying here because I kept Bryce longer than I promised I would, because he's a good guy, so he's sticking around to finish it up. Denver Nuggets did not have a draft pick, but Tamar Bates and Curtis Jones, I think, are pretty good guys. Their reports are out. Trey Alexander will not be back.
Okay.
In Denver. I don't know if he's pursuing a place where maybe he thinks he can standard spot or two-way with a better path, but sounds like he's not going to be back. So I like picking up Curtis Jones. Tamar Bates. Those are guys, whether on two-way contracts or just straight in the G League. Interesting players for sure for them. I don't know if you have any more thoughts
Just
on those
real
two.
quick, Curtis Jones, a big time scorer at Iowa State, and so interesting there. Tamar Bates, I saw some people like really thought he was going to get drafted. I didn't love it as much in terms of that. People talking about him being a big time shooter. I wish like the volume would have been higher with that, but the percentage and stuff like that and the free throw percentage were really good for Tamar Bates out of Missouri. So good flyers there for the Nuggets. We'll see if either of them pan out for him. I mean, like this dude is a career 90% free throw shooter, like 92% for his career. So obviously some touch there. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and then the Houston Rockets are the other team. Did not end up drafting a player, but they get Cam Matthews. All right. Cam Matthews showed up occasionally for me when I was watching other SEC games, and they happen to be playing Mississippi State. Pretty good athleticism, can do some stuff, as far as being a defender, kind of throwing his body around a little bit. I like that he's fairly physical, but he doesn't shoot at all.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what his path is going to be as a 6'7" player there. I did like as a senior, there were a couple times I was like, who made that pass? And then I went back. I was like, all right, the kind of 6'7" power forward kid. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Houston. They have plenty of young talent, Keith.
Yeah.
It's okay that they didn't add some this season. Even with the trade for KD, it's not like they moved off of two of those young guys or whatever. I think it's okay for them to take a year off from adding anything in regards to that. So they'll be fine.
Already sorting through Cam Whitmore stuff, maybe traded. We'll see what happens with that. Yeah, that forward group ridiculously deep in Houston. Like it only added to it with getting KD, right? That kind of pushes everybody else even down another slot, but good problem to have. Good thing for Rafael Stone and crew to sort through. I will say I like a lot of people in the Rockets scouting department too. There's people there that I think do really good work. So if they see something worth it in Cam Matthews, all right, I'm willing to say maybe I'm missing something, but we'll see. Bryce, we did it, man. We got through all 30 teams. I appreciate you. You stayed later than I promised I'd have you out by 10. It's almost 10:30 here on the East Coast. I know you've got work to do, all this stuff. I know you're probably going to be there harvesting wheat and thinking about the Pistons and everything else.
Free agency time, Keith.
Free agency time, yeah. Pistons, interesting team to monitor in free agency. Couple different pathways to go. I kind of thought Dennis Schroeder might just be back, but now there's buzz of a lot of other teams are chasing. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. For everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on a Saturday morning, for hanging out with us to break it down. There's some people in the chat. They were talking to us before we started. They're still here. You're the real ones. We appreciate you guys for hanging out. Please hit that like button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button. Bryce, tell everybody where they can find all your work.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. I promise I don't flood your timelines with Piston stuff. It'll be draft and just work that I put out more than anything. So don't be afraid to follow and think you're just going to be bombarded with Detroit Piston stuff. On Blue Sky as well. And then the Substack, like that's probably your best resource for me right now. Again, 14 of the names that we talked about today are over there with video breakdowns, like 6 to 10 minutes, depending on the player, and even some free agency names. I just put out a Sante Aldama one. I have a Nas Reed one, and Nikhil Alexander Walker, a Jake LaRavia, friend of the front office podcast. That was a great interview you guys did, and Austin Reeves with the cameo. And then of course, Game Theory podcast. Sam and I on Sunday, I think, are going to do this exact same thing over there. So if this wasn't enough for you, we probably have a couple hours over there on Sunday. Keith, I tell you this all the time. This is literally surreal. Sometimes I don't like it because this means 2.5 hours of a podcast I don't get to listen to now because I was part of it. So, but I listened to you and Trevor for many months, couple years before I ever got invited on, not in about, but just like you guys. And it's always awesome to think that I get to join the show now. And you have truly become a friend, both of you guys. We just text about random stuff sometimes, which I always love and appreciate. It's the best part of this job. So thank you for having me.
We just get to connect sometimes about being dads, right?
Yes, right.
Like there's, stuff with that too. Yeah. You're absolutely a, huge part of love having you be a part of the show with us. I love all the work you do on the draft. I like that you're like me. You want all these kids to be awesome. So
Yes.
you tend to take a very positive approach, but with pointed criticism where it fits. But it's not just, hey, I say this all the time. We're going to do it through summer league. And as we learn these guys in the NBA, we focus too much on what guys can't do and don't put enough focus on what they can do. Sometimes the thing they can't do keeps them from getting somewhere. That's okay. That's fair to point it out. But if they can do a lot of really good stuff, don't get lost and overly focus on the one thing. I love your approach to all this stuff.
Thank you.
Love that you come from it from a real place too, with real experience, playing at a high level. Awesome stuff. Great work from you. I really appreciate you hanging out. But man, I'm getting texts from your family saying he's got to work. Get him out.
My dad, I was supposed to be, I have a 30-minute drive to where my parents live. So no, here's the thing. I'm supposed to be there in 3 minutes. So when I don't show up, my dad will be calling me in about 3 minutes asking where I'm at. The thing is, my family very much, I don't know that they don't even watch the podcast, but they understand that I love it. Because even my kids will be like, Dad, why do you smile so much on the podcast? Like, you're always so happy. So they get that I love it. So they're very understanding, and I appreciate them very much for it.
Well, whenever I do make it out there to come out, because you promised me I can come out. You're going to teach me how to drive a combine sometime.
100%.
I'll buy your dad a beer, and at the end of the day, and I'll make up to him for that. Thanks so much. I appreciate you hanging out here with me. I appreciate everybody who watches, everybody who listens. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button. We're really trying to push to get over 40,000. Trevor and I will be back probably Monday evening, late Monday evening. The opposite of this show. We'll be back late Monday. But if there's big news that comes out Saturday, Sunday, or Monday won't be Monday during the day. I have a minor medical thing I have to go get handled in the morning part, but Monday evening, our free agency recap show will be there to break all that down. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We love all you guys, all the support you give all of us. Bryce, thank you again. And guys, Trevor closes it out with stay safe and see ya.